Oh, I hear somebody.
Yeah.
I'm unmuted. I'm muted.
There you go. You're muted, Alec. Do you hear feedback?
I can hear the feedback, yeah.
Right now?
Now do you hear feedback?
No.
Okay.
Oh, wait, yes. No, now it sounds good.
Now it sounds good? All right. I think we're good.
So can I share my screen?
Yeah, now let me give you, I gotta give you the right share screen. Thanks, Alec.
And Casey and Kim are on there. You're like, I see it, I see it.
So yeah, you can go ahead and share your screen now.
Okay. I have nothing. I have nothing. I had it off.
Yeah, that off.
I had it off. I touched it again and then I had it off. Okay. It's done. I mean, it's no longer doing it. So.
Nope.
And be careful. You're gonna strip. But I'm only at 51. I've been all day.
A little closer to you.
I'm wondering if every time she goes into a different screen,
It might readjust.
Oh, readjust the audio. Okay. Well, luckily, it's only gonna happen twice.
As other board members sitting up in the same conference room.
Yeah, Maria's already there, and she logged in, and then I saw Kim log in. Do we have anybody else trying to get in?
You're actually gonna see it now.
Oh, I am?
You should just see it pop up at the top there.
Oh, okay. I'll do it. I didn't know. I was managing that too. Okay.
Well,
I understand. I know now. Now I can do it. I just yeah, now so we're just missing two. There's a phone. I'll just admit it. I don't know who that is. We're just online now. And then there's a phone number. And Kim's on there. Yeah. I don't know. What is? Let me see what Karen's number is. Don't say it out loud. Don't say it out loud. We're streaming. Yeah, that's not hers. I'm not sure who that is.
Sandra says she doesn't have a link. Shocker.
Can you resend it? I wonder who that is. That's interesting. I don't know who that is.
Are you guys all there?
We're can you mute? Yes, we're here. We're just getting everybody else on right now.
It's Kim. I'm here. Just wanted you to know.
Okay, great, Kim. I'm glad to know who that was. I was actually wondering who that was. So that's you at work. Okay, great. Okay, we have now all board members. Jennifer Shocker's on.
Okay. All right. I'd like to call to order our special meeting for today, April 15th, 2020. This meeting is being held virtually, and to keep it moving, someone that would like to speak on an agenda item, they would have had to submit their comments via email to trustee before 6 o'clock, and it is now 6:02. And before we go to the Pledge of Allegiance, I would like to give each trustee a minute to kind of talk about how they're feeling about their district. So if Trustee Shocker, if you wanted to go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I think a lot of families are trying to pull together during this time. I know the community of Watsonville is really doing a great job at looking out for each other. I know that teachers are still experiencing some issues, as well as some of our essential workers and our parents at home with distance learning. Hopefully this meeting will give some answers and some clarification and help move us all forward during this unprecedented time. And I know I've heard from some of the seniors in high school, and a lot of them are trying to keep their spirits up and thinking of alternative ways that they can do certain things to maintain a sense of normalcy and some ideas for graduation. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Orozco, are you there?
I am. I just want to echo what Trustee Shocker said. I think we're all getting similar concerns, from questions regarding graduation to how to improve the lunch that's been given out to students, and some concerns regarding workload for teachers, in addition to just some concerns from parents who are just trying to adapt to distant learning. So I think everyone is just trying to adapt. And so hopefully, again, this meeting can clear some of those questions up, and then also provide the community with a sense of all the resources that we have available and what the district is doing to address those concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee DeSerpa, are you there?
Hi there, everybody. Thank you. I really don't have much more to add except to say, hang in there, everybody. It sounds like the public health officer for Santa Cruz County will be relaxing some of the standards for our beaches and parks, which I think will be welcome for our families. I want to thank all of our staff and teachers for all the hard and different types of work that they're doing. I'm looking forward to having our essential staff back on campuses so that we can take advantage of this time when the kids aren't on campuses to get them in better shape in terms of painting and grounds and plumbing and electrical and all of that. So anyway, thank you. And again, echoing what everyone else has said. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Hall?
So I am at heart a scientist, and through years of training, and I go where the best evidence leads me. And so when we're in a situation like this, where the evidence changes day to day, I have to remind myself that what may seem obvious in retrospect may not be so in the moment. And that's the nature of discovery. I want to acknowledge the tremendous amount of work that has been done in transitioning an entire school district to a distance learning format. This happened quickly, and we are still at the very beginning stages. I appreciate the willingness by the superintendent, the cabinet, teachers, staff, parents, and students, to adapt, adjust, and to continue to look for ways to improve this process and support one another. In any important endeavor, there will always be opportunities to improve. And that does not in any way detract from the Herculean efforts that have been undertaken in the last few weeks. Thank you to everybody who has made and continues to make growth and learning possible during this global crisis.
Thank you very much. Trustee Acosta, are you there?
Yes, I am, President Trustee Dodge Jr. Thank you. I just want to take a moment and I want to really commend all of our teachers for stepping up in this time. I know and understand firsthand how challenging it has been to move into the transition of emergency remote teaching. This has been a challenge for us as educators as well as it has been for our students. But I do know firsthand that as educators, we do our call to step up to the call and do our best. And so I really, really want to express my deep gratitude and thanks to all of our faculty at PVUSD for what you are doing. And I would like to just also recognize our classified school employees and all their work that they're doing, our staff. I know that times are very confusing. There's a lot of misguided information and communication has been miss and hit. And for that, I feel hope for you all. I do hope that tonight we get some resolve to many of the deep, deep concerns that you all rightfully have. And then lastly, I just wanted to actually, speaking of with regards to classified school employees, so just take a second and recognize Barbie Gomez. I know President Trustee Dodge Jr. and Vice Chair Clerk Trustee Holm and Trustee Shocker, you were all at the Pajaro Valley Chamber Award Dinner earlier this year, where she was recognized as the Woman of the Year by our PV Chamber. And she is one of our very own classified school employees, a school bus driver for PVUSD. And she has undertaken the Project Elder Care, which when it began, my understanding was that they were servicing 700 seniors in our community and with daily deliveries, and now they are up to over 1,200 servicing the city of Watsonville, the Pajaro Valley, Las Lomas area. So I just really want to recognize her and commend her for her work and her efforts and what she's doing for our community, and definitely is a testament to why I think she was recognized as Woman of the Year. So thank you, Barbie, and that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Trustee Osmondson, are you here? Karen? Okay, well, we might be having technical difficulties, so I'll go ahead.
So I just think I unmuted her. So Karen, are you there?
Okay.
And
okay. I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for putting this meeting together. Just to kind of echo what everybody had to say. I know within the city of Watsonville and Aptos, Las Lomas, Pajaro, I know a lot of parents have questions, a lot of teachers have questions. So I just wanted to have this meeting so we're all here and we all could be on the same page. And here our superintendent. I also like to thank to the teachers that are still putting together packets and helping call students when they're not showing up online. Thank you to the classified workers that are working, cleaning up our schools. Special shout out to the lunch ladies at Yale Hall School and Watsonville High, who are dealing with hundreds of cars every day, handing out thousands of bags of lunches and breakfast. And I also too want to say thank you, Barbie Gomez and Dee Vargas, for expanding your program. I know you guys are at a warehouse on Walker Street, feeding the senior citizens, raising money. And I just wanted to say thank you very much for doing that. And I will see you guys. Thank you. So Karen, are you here? I just wanted to give you a chance to speak. All right, next up, agenda item 2.1, approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion?
Do we want to do
I'm sorry. I'd like to ask Trustee Holm to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Fred. All right, agenda item 2.1, the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Would like to move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I will now call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. All right. Next up, public comment, agenda item 3.1. Trustee Holmes.
Yeah, we have a few comments. From John Bland. Good evening to you all. Thank you for your hard work, each and every one of you. I've worked tirelessly utilizing my district issued Chromebook and 2 personal computers to work through the unique challenges distance learning poses. And I've been fairly successful. On Friday at a department chair meeting with Dr. Rodriguez about the hold harmless grading policy, I shared that I've reached 92% of my students successfully at least once. And I'm getting about 75% participation in my virtual classrooms over the course of a week and a half with approximately the same turn-in rate. Dr. Rodriguez asked me directly to send her a list of my successful engagement and communication strategies, and I was able to do so the next morning, Saturday. Perhaps some colleagues will be able to adopt some of these strategies, and I hope to see my success numbers increase with continued effort. Moreover, every student has reported that our virtual classrooms are helpful and appreciated, which was music to my ears because it has been a very stressful, arduous process. Parenthetically, I can also report it was a pleasure working with Dr. Rodriguez. Now to the topic of compensation. You may remember that I wrote and read a letter entitled "Math is Not English" in front of the board just before we were told not to return to our sites. It was about how I'm applying to other schools that pay between $20,000 and $46,000 for my same position on the salary schedule. To repeat that letter, I love teaching English at PVUSD High, but it's not about English, it's math, and the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I can't afford to work at PVUSD. I'm passionate about education, but when I take into consideration the cost of living in this area, I'm severely underpaid, and the wages at PVUSD are not even close to competitive to other schools that are the same distance from my house. Please approve the raise requested by PVFT. From Carrie Knott. Dear board members, I just want to share with you how hard we are working to provide quality distance education to our students. As an SLP, it's been very challenging. There's a steep learning curve to go from working in a small groups with hands-on, specially selected activities. We can usually provide immediate feedback, scaffolding, and modifications to the lesson itself as needed. Now we have to serve students remotely. This has, of course, been very sudden, and I know I have never been trained in this kind of service model. I'm having to learn a whole new technology, a lot of new technology related things with varying degrees of success. I have to coordinate my speech lessons among 10 different Google Classrooms with 10 teachers with different approaches to how things are done. I am attempting to stay in contact with parents and families. This is difficult and time consuming, as it is difficult to find current contact information, touch base with parents, and communicate when parents speak only English and my Spanish is inconsistent at best. I have to select individual assignments that can be uploaded to Google Classroom. This takes so much more time compared to the preparation time required for face-to-face speech therapy. It is difficult to navigate free available materials, as I simply cannot afford to pay out of pocket for more materials. I have spent all my available funds for supplies that are now just sitting at my office. So I also end up modifying and creating new materials. I then have to provide feedback to students, make modifications, and select and upload new appropriate activities which address their IEP goals. I've had to purchase ink for my printer so that I can modify some materials. My bills are higher as I'm streaming the internet and using resources all day at home. I am working to hold IEPs remotely. I am truly grateful to be considered an essential employee. I only have to listen to the news to see that many have lost their jobs during this time. That said, I'm working a lot of extra hours to try and continue to provide my services. There doesn't seem to be enough time in the day to get these direct services done in spite of great effort on my part. I just want to ask the board not to support the district creating more paperwork, forms, matrices, etc. at this time. I know we are all working so diligently to serve our students. We just don't have the time, energy, or resources for what seems to be busy work for us in order to save time for administration. Thank you for your consideration. Carrie Knott, speech language pathologist. For Sarah Summers Winterburn, to add to your inquiry regarding equity for upper grade teachers, I'd like to add that we spend hours a day both online teaching live lessons and grading, monitoring, and posting lessons. This requires many hours a day, and lower grade is not doing this. Then the equitable divide is very large between lower and upper grade workload. I certainly don't want to add lower grade teachers' work. I'm simply stating the fact that we're doing a lot more in terms of hours worked. How can we be compensated for this? Also, other districts are giving a pass-fail grade to students. We are grading diligently and spending countless hours doing so. We need directives on what we're doing for grading ASAP. Thank you. From Jacob Martinez. Jacob here from Digital Nest. Today I'm writing with my hat on as a parent of 2 high school students and an elementary student at Alianza. I have a junior at WHS and a sophomore at Diamond Tech. My question, how are students' academics going to be accessed this semester? We have a very privileged home here. Each of my kids has a computer, their own space in the house to work, a backyard to get out and stretch their legs, and 2 college-educated parents at home to help them with work and their schedules. Even with all of these resources, it's still very challenging for my kids and us to stay focused and motivated during these times. This is a privilege that I know not many students in our district have. How will the district grade our youth in a way that doesn't penalize those families who don't have equal resources, but acknowledge those kids that are putting in the time to compensate work? Will it be a pass, no pass? Will students have the option to take grades? Will we not just count this semester? I am sure these questions are not easy to answer, but I know it would be helpful to get some sense of what expectations should be. Thank you for all of your work and commitment to our youth. Warmly, Jacob Martinez. So, and Helica Gomez Patino. Dear PVUSD Board of Trustees and Dr. Rodriguez, as a parent to a senior, a first grader, and a spouse of a teacher, I want to share our family's recent experiences and ask questions. For the seniors, this has been a saddening time. I did express to Watsonville High site principal that we should find a way to honor the seniors. I suggested possibly running some sort of ad in the local newspaper featuring the graduates. I would like the site to continue traditions of events such as scholarship night, award night, etc. via a virtual platform. If the expectation is for teachers and students to adjust to distance learning, it would be great to see the site administrators hold virtual events to honor the seniors. For our first grader, it is a bit stressful to complete the packets while both parents work from home. I believe in continuing our students' progress, but would appreciate more flexibility. The weekly turn-in due dates can be very stressful and difficult to accomplish. Is the district planning on reimbursing certificated staff for a percentage of necessary expenditures incurred by the employee in direct consequence to the discharge of his or her duties as it relates to distance learning? For example, internet plans, phone, land or cell, or other expenditures in accordance with California labor laws. I would like to know what the financial cost was for sanitizing the site. In hindsight, it was a rushed decision based on the expectation that students would return to all sites. It seems like an exorbitant amount of money to have spent. It is my understanding that other districts did not rush to such decisions. Please clarify on site principals, classified staff, current job duties, and possible adjustments to their responsibilities as a result to the school closures. Schools have been asked to not only transition to distance learning, but to provide weekly lesson plans. I have seen firsthand how much students and teachers have been working so hard on top of all the stress, social isolation that comes with the pandemic. I look forward to hearing your responses. Thank you for your time. From Vivian, excuse me. Pardon, let me get the name. Vivian Steiner Shepherd. I know I'm in, sorry, it's closing on me. I know I'm in good company when I say that I'm feeling overwhelmed by the demands of distance learning. As a speech language specialist working with preschool through 5th graders, my task is to create meaningful activities for my students in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and ESL. Fortunately, I only work half-time theoretically, so I have been able to use my free time to indulge my new hobby obsession of scouring the internet for free resources to use for weekly packets and Google Classroom assignments. I rely on Google Translate to make materials bilingual. Normally, I work with a translator to serve my Spanish-speaking preschoolers. Another recent hobby I've had to take up is trying to learn all the technology necessary to create and implement lessons. Last weekend, I watched a number of YouTube how-to videos and managed to make my first Google quiz and Google slide. I'm not a tech-savvy person, and if it weren't for my in-house tech support, husband and 2 sons, I'd be tearing out my hair. As it is, I am merely losing all semblance of work-life balance, not to mention sleep, even with chemical assistance. I have faced a new challenging situations in the past, child needing emergency brain surgery, parent dying of cancer, tree falling on house, but COVID-19 distance learning is definitely causing many sleepless nights. It's not just the range of ages and languages of our students that create special challenges for speech language specialists, but also the enormously variable abilities and expectations of their parents. At one end of the spectrum are the parents who literally cannot find the caps lock key in order to enter a password, and at the other end are parents who are requesting individual teletherapy. Attempting to accommodate everyone is extremely difficult. And even after watching an all-day webinar on how to do teletherapy, I am no closer to actually being able to successfully accomplish that feat. I am very fortunate to be part of a group of creative and supportive speech language specialists. We have been pooling resources through shared drive tips via email. I think we are all doing the level best to navigate during this difficult time, and I sincerely hope the district does not add unnecessary tasks to our workload. From Deborah Mallard. Board of Trustees, Dr. Rodriguez, and guests. Our world has experienced a once-in-a-lifetime event. It is not school as usual. For many parents, teachers, and students, the stress of shelter-in-place order is taxing on their emotional mental health. For this, we need to be very aware of any stressors that are being added by district mandates. Many teachers are accessing paid sites such as Teachers Pay Teacher to find and purchase materials for virtual and packet work. We are purchasing stamps, delivering materials to homes. We are using our home, internet, Wi-Fi, and cell phone service to conduct work daily. Just like the stipends admin gets for cars, mileage, and phones, teachers deserve reimbursements for these expenses. At many of our sites, parents continue to perform essential duties in their work. Our families that work in agriculture are experiencing the peak time, often working from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily. To ask families of workers to come home and provide 2.5 to 4 hours of work with their students who are unable to do it without parent input is asking too much. As we've seen at food distribution and the county food bank, there is a financial stress on families already. For the district to add more stressors onto these families is testing their capacity to the breaking point. For students, especially in high school, the workload is extreme. The students are spending 8 to 10 hours plus on work Monday through Friday. And if they can't devote that amount of time, they are not meeting their teachers' assignments. There's also some forgotten students. We have students who are in charge of their siblings during the workday while their parents are away. Children attending daycare every day. Children who live in unsafe family situations. Children who just lack their friend group or emotional support. All situations we need to consider. While I'm happy to teach my students in the current climate, I realize that school is not everything. Families need to take care of themselves, manage stress, and get through this once-in-a-lifetime event. I hope that Dr. Rodriguez and the board can keep those issues in mind with all future decision-making, as well as use the same lens to revisit choices like continuing teacher evaluations. Sincerely, Deborah Mallard. From Christy Judd. Dear trustees, thank you for your intelligent and transparent care of our district. Your time and energy is valued. My comment is with regard to the future of our distance learning environments. Being in the instructional technology field, I am also making a request that technology for teachers be considered, as trying to implement successful plans from using a Chromebook is subpar and insufficient at best. The Chromebooks are slow and don't give the teacher the opportunity to run platforms like Meet and Zoom, and are hindering our teachers from adequately teaching students. I have spent many hours testing out the capacity and hearing from my staff at PVHS that don't have their own personal computers to use, and it's painful and impossible to attend staff, department, and other online meetings. Outfitting secondary teachers to be able to perform to the best of their ability is my goal. Just food for thought as we continue forging ahead. Christy Quinn. Okay. From Abel Mejia. Board of Trustees, Superintendent Rodriguez. Administration has been intolerant with expanded, unnecessary, duplicitous demands for our workday. We are being asked to work 11 to 12-hour days to accomplish these requests or face the wrath of negative, demeaning, or unprofessional feedback from our administrative supervisors. We are asked to be flexible and patient with our students, but are not given the same reciprocity. They assume we all have the same number of students, classes to prepare, technological savvy, and students' needs to manage. I can safely assume that none of these members of administration has had to teach in this unprecedented environment. How could they possibly know what is too much work? Who has enabled them? What will your message to administration be? Abel Mejia. From Maura Leonard. Dear PVUSD, thank you for taking the time and listening to our concerns. My name is Maura Leonor. I have 2 children in distance learning. Omari Cruz, 14 years old, in the 9th grade at Seba Charter School, and Davian Hoel, 9 years old, in the 4th grade at Minty White Elementary. 2 schools, 2 separate needs transitions into this new way of learning. The concerns I have is that of my children's education being put on my ability to teach without a teaching credential. As parents, I'm learning a new system the same way my children are, as many other parents and teachers. I feel the frustration and a total imbecile for not understanding how to navigate a simple system that I should know how to do. I volunteer at my son's school. I should know how to do this, but I don't. I can only feel sorry for those that are worse off than myself in understanding this and not doing the homework because we don't know how to submit it. The fact that my child is trying to teach me, but I see his little confused face not knowing what to do himself. I can't understand how I will be able to have him follow and focus when he's already feeling frustrated. On the other hand, I'm sure you're addressing standardized planning and dealing with how to work with IEP cases. Since they're all unique and individualized cases, both my sons have IEPs and recipient of RSP services. Many of the parents that don't advocate for their child needs or understand what their child needs or abilities are, hopefully have a great school psychologist like our school has at Minty White that can identify the need of the child. I would also like to know what would the grading and retaining system going like after COVID-19. We as a family are in no hurry to have children start school ASAP over safety. COVID-19 is our priority, and I feel it should be everyone's priority in this unprecedented time. Thank you. I also want to thank Danny Dodge Jr. for always making himself available and communicating to all. From a concerned parent, Maura and Fabian Leonor. From Maria Martinez. So I am a 5th grader at Ansoldo. 4 hours of work daily is not realistic for my 11-year-old students, 5th grade teacher yet, children during a pandemic. As a mother of 2 PVUSD students, 5 hours of work a day is not realistic for my middle school child or my high school child. They are overwhelmed. I am overwhelmed. I applaud their Lakeview and high school, Watsonville high school teachers and principals for the hard work they are putting in and their ongoing communication. Shout out to Ms. Gonzalez, Mr. Jones, Ms. Lagaretta, Dr. Hernandez, Ms. Scoots, and more. The issues are many: Wi-Fi, family stress, a lack of quiet place to work, lack of supplies. Yes, I've given these out and delivered to homes. Lack of motivation due to stress or not knowing how to adjust to the sudden shift, etc. The overwhelming majority of my students are not completing the online work I'm posting. I have ensured it is 4 hours and no more. I, like many other teachers and amazing support staff, have called, emailed, and messaged parents, families, and students. This is exceptionally necessary and extremely time consuming. Families are overwhelmed. They have told me that they are overwhelmed. They have told me they are doing their best. Most are working outside the home, and those at home are feeling the stress of being out of work or at home all day, every day, and taking care of their families and themselves. In every single online Google Meet I've had with students, there are toddlers on laps of my students and family members in and out of view, which causes an interruption for the student trying to attend to the task or discussion. Some of my students are babysitters for siblings, part or all of the day. This, along with Wi-Fi issues for myself, I have no ability to upgrade in my rural area, and my students makes real-time teaching and uploading tutorial videos a challenge. Please consider the humanity of our students, families, and teachers above all else. Please reduce the required hours a day of work as elementary and secondary. Thank you. From Alyssa Weber. As we have transitioned to distance learning, the biggest need I see for students is food and housing security. I have students who are among many in the district who have parents that are undocumented and have lost work. They cannot access unemployment food stamps or a stimulus check. They can't fill up their car with gas to drive to the school to pick up a homework packet. They are fighting for their lives with whatever resources the community can provide them. While kids could get breakfast and lunch daily, what about dinner? How are they being fed on the weekends? What about the parents? Local food banks can't fill this huge need. When we ask parents to step in as teachers, we are placing additional burdens on them beyond just figuring out how they will pay rent and feed their families. There are going to be families who have the resources to stay afloat financially and guide their kids through distance learning, but they will not be the majority. The greatest threat to our community is the trauma and stress for many students and families just to stay alive. As a district, every possible available resource should be allocated to help keep food on the table, pay their rent, and be in a safe place. Not Wi-Fi hotspots, not Chromebooks. Food, shelter, and emotional support. That is all that matters. From Lourdes Barraza. Oops. I am writing as a mental health professional who has been working with parents in the community. I am writing because I am still concerned about the amount of schoolwork students are being given. Parents are continuing to feel overwhelmed by the amount of work their kids have to complete. Is it possible to decrease the amount of work kids are getting, especially at the elementary level? I believe that 4 hours of work for 1 to 5 grade is a bit much, especially when kids need adult assistance and adults are having to work from home. Again, I bring this concern because I worry about parents feeling overwhelmed and stressed by working from home and having to assist their children with 4 hours of work. I thank you in advance for your consideration in addressing this concern. Lourdes. From Risa Schwartz. Good evening, Executive Board. My name is Risa Schwartz and I proudly teach 2nd grade at Mar Vista Elementary. I appreciate your time and the time of all the people in district office who are working tirelessly for us. I want to start by acknowledging my academic coordinator, Danny Jacobsmeyer, who has been beyond helpful in more ways than my 2 minutes has to share. He is amazing and we are all so thankful for him and his techie knowledge, among other things. He has truly been my saving grace. My question is this: why are primary students, particularly 1st and 2nd graders, being held to the same number of required minutes of work as intermediate students during this distance learning time? I have friends who are both teachers and parents in other districts who do not have the same requirements across the grade levels, as well as for their 2nd grade students. I have heard both 2 and 2.5 hours being required. Parent feedback is that they are doing as much as they can with their children, but they are exhausted and feeling very overwhelmed, having to manage their child doing 4 hours of schoolwork while working themselves and running their households. Quite frankly, it is adding to their stress and their children are extremely hesitant to work. This is the biggest feedback from my classroom parents. Is there talk of graduating minutes the way they are for TK and K for 1st and 2nd grade? Thank you for your time. Respectfully, Risa Schwartz. From Shirley Myers regarding PVUSD meal distribution. Could this vital information be moved out of the news section wherein parents must scroll down quite a way in order to access the weekly meal distribution calendar? So my request is to move this to the highlight section of the PVUSD homepage. Thank you, Shirley Myers. From Ann Twitchell. Dear Honorable Trustee, thank you. Thank you for listening to your teachers and classified staffs about their concerns for their health and the lives of their family members. We're often quick to let you know when you're getting and wrong, and I wanted to be sure to thank you for getting it right. For understanding the health and safety risks this precedent presented to our community and acting quickly to ensure proper social distancing. Thank you for understanding the science and understanding that people's lives are literally on the line. Your quick and decisive action protected our health and safety and saved people's lives. Thank you for putting us first. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for having another meeting to listen to concerns about the impacts of distance learning. Thank you for continuing to listen to your teachers. Anna Twitchell. From Pamela Sexton. My name is Pam Sexton, and I am a teacher in Adult Education's Learning Center, where we help our students finish their high school diploma, pass the GED or HISET, or graduate with their high school. It has been challenging to connect with our students, but together our teachers and counselors have worked to connect and help our students continue toward their educational goals. Many, however, are unable to continue due to a lack of internet access or new real-life pressures. Each adult ed program, i.e. Learning Center, ESL, parent education, and various fee-based classes, has had to adapt to the different needs and realities of our students, many of whom are parents and also essential workers, including agricultural field workers. We are grateful to have been given the professional freedom to choose from a variety of modalities and online tools to determine what will work best for each class and for individual students, and we have been given support to learn as we go. I want to commend the district's tech department, which was thorough and clear in their support, while surely overwhelmed. And after my call to them, I was a step ahead in doing my job better. We are a strong community of teachers, and I want to thank the board for all the support you give to our teachers and staff. I think I got everything, but I just want to double check. Okay.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay. Agenda item 4.1, COVID-19 update, and the report will be presented by Dr. Michelle Rodriguez.
President Trustee Dodge Jr., can I actually ask you a question real quick before the superintendent, Dr. Michelle Rodriguez, begins her presentation?
Yes.
Could you please explain to me why the live chat has been disabled on the YouTube channel for the live stream? That was directed to you, President Trustee Dodge Jr.
I'm not sure. I assumed that it was up because I don't know why we would take it off.
We can engage it. We will
Yeah,
engage.
I mean, I think it's important that we have that engaged, that we are still honoring our democratic process and system, and that gives people an opportunity to be a part of this meeting that are part of the public, the same as if we were still in-house and they were there. So I think that's an important component, and we have never had that disabled in the past, so I don't see why it's disabled now.
Sounds good. Are we able to? Okay. Technology will work on it.
Thank you.
So do I share my screen or you're going to share? I share? Okay. Alrighty. Okay. All right. Well, hold on. Don't worry. I'm fixing it. Okay, there we go. Okay. So thank you very much. I'm going to be going over several points. Hopefully you can see the screen now. So great. Well, thank you. I do want to say that we've had some really positive press in the last several days on the work that PVUSD is doing. So I do want to note that with any situation, we're going to have some bumps along the road, but I did want to make a note that we are going to be highlighted not only by Pivot Learning, but also EdSource. So EdSource had a conversation they heard through various avenues that we were doing great work for kids and that we had already started and had been doing it. So I did want to mention that we will be having some highlights and some pretty prestigious articles, and EdSource is a big news source for the educational field. So just going through avenues of communication, one thing that we're trying to do is just to make sure that everyone knows where the communications are. So if you look at this screenshot right here, and I see you can see my my clicker. So you look at the arrow. I just want to make sure everybody knows about the COVID-19 website tab. So that includes everything that we've sent out. And so we've sent out over 20 different communications. I didn't count them this time, but it's significant. So that it's there for you if you want to see it. There you will see letters to the community and staff. I did start something new that was called Ask Dr. Rodriguez. I just want to mention where it is. So if you go to the superintendent's website and it says Ask Dr. Rodriguez, it says click to the form or enlace al formulario. That's where you'll see that. We did have over 30 entries for this first week. I was able to answer 10 questions that took care of almost 90% of the questions. So there was a lot of the same question. And so I encourage people to see them. You'll see these editions each Friday. And so here they are.
I forgot Ellie's comment. I was thinking about
Oh,
a separate agenda
I'm sorry.
item. And my apologies.
Okay.
So I'm used to having the separate PVT.
Okay. Do you have the video?
I have it.
I don't think I actually
Yeah.
But you don't share the screen. So hold on just one second.
I apologize for the interruption.
Everybody, we're just taking a step back because there was other public comments. They got split. So we're just going to go back and finish them.
Okay. I have it right here. Okay. The live chat is back, just so you guys know.
And the live chat is back.
I have to refresh.
People who want to see the live chat.
Okay. Okay. Unfortunately, I cannot show it because I needed to request access because I wasn't originally on there. I don't know if we want to read. She read from the script. Do you want to read from the script that she sent you then? Or
let me see what I could do.
Or if Nellie is listening, if she can provide me access, then I can actually go in. But I sent the request. Let's see. Oh, there she is. She must have heard me. Okay, here we go. Okay.
Lives, and during this uncertain time, our hearts believe it is necessary to model creative thinking and compassion for our students as they experience this pandemic whilst continuing to grow personally and academically. PVFT has spent several days in conversation with the district administration about the distance learning plan they first released when schools were closed. The district released a plan that micromanaged our members and added documentation and clerical requirements that not only took away planning time for our transition to remote instruction, but was also duplicative. Although we provided feedback on a daily basis regarding areas of concern, PVFT decided to submit a demand of bargain over the impacts of the effects of school closure so that collaboration could begin. The district called in their attorney to be part of our sessions as they do not agree that distance learning from our homes presented bargaining rights. We presented the district with the framework of labor management collaboration, which was endorsed by our governor. As per the state, there is an expectation of collaboration between the district and the local union. Our talks led to some minor understanding by the administration to see where the duplication is happening, but the tasks in question were not entirely given up. Advocating for an instructional day that best addresses the emotional and academic growth of our students is important. What we ask is only that we are treated as the professionals that we are given the respect and the authority to plan and teach as best fits our students, the needs of our students. These added requirements bring to light the lack of trust and respect given to our membership. This does not require submitting a week's worth of lessons plans by noon every Friday when our lessons are in Google Classroom. This does not require that ECE teachers show their face on a screen in a video conference if they choose not to. This does not require having to create a whole new document to place learning intentions or goals when there is already a place to locate the necessary information. ECE teachers who are paid at a lesser rate should not be required to complete the same amount of work assignments that head teachers do. We know that distance learning will never replace the value of our physical schools, so we will continue to focus on doing the best to support our students while we are confronted with this global pandemic and while we move through our own daily lives meeting the needs of our own families and loved ones. This requires flexibility by the adults in charge. PVFT members look forward to the day we can all return to our classrooms and offices and reconnect with the school community. Thank you.
Are we done now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and go like this. Alrighty. Okay, so so I just encourage people to continue to submit their questions for the FAQs, and they would have them here. We have started informational videos. We've done now 4 informational videos. We're actually doing an informational video for our seniors on Friday. So we're trying multiple means. We do have social media presence, making sure something that has been new. We were practicing with it, and we've been doing it since this pandemic started. Is now we're not only able to email parents, but we send text messages with links, and we are doing robocalls. And so I encourage all parents to work with their school sites to ensure that a cell number is in Synergy, because if it is, then they will get text messages with live links to resources that we're putting out. And then we do have the parent resource tab. It's newly visualized, and so it's really easy to follow. So we encourage people to do that. So just talking about food services support, we have a wonderful collaboration with Second Harvest Food Bank. As you can see, our numbers each and every week grow. So this was numbers from week 3, and you'll see how many meals that we provided for students. I do want to say we have been going back and forth on trying to identify what type of meals we should provide students. So the first week and a half, we were doing what people considered were finger foods, and they felt like it wasn't enough. So then we switched to rotating in microwavable meals. We did have some negative feedback on that from parents saying that they didn't necessarily have access to to a microwave. Some of them had a stove, but they didn't have a microwave, and that it was causing issues. So we do have a great food services team that's really trying to work out how to provide as much equity as we can of what they would have received within the school day. Of course, normally they're receiving hot meals, and that has proved to be a challenge for us and maintain the social distancing. But Second Harvest, they do provide the USDA bags. We were able to raise that. That's from 100, we raised it from 120 to now they give out 180 a day. You can see this week, this is for the September 13th through the 17th. You can see where they have been this week. They've already been at Watsonville High, EA Hall, and on Friday they will be at Alianza Charter. And I did want to note that this 3-week number is with a 4-day week, because our staff there, that was a 10-month holiday for staff. And so we expect that will be more like 90,000 meals served this week, because we're continuing to do it.
I have a question.
Sure.
So was that 180 supposed to start today?
It should have happened already today.
Well, I was helping out today and I only saw 160. So
okay.
I just wanted to bring that.
Yeah, instead of the 180.
Yeah. Okay. Because we need every single bag that we can get, because that 160 only lasts 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, I don't know where the miscount came. I know that, Second Harvest has all volunteers. We have volunteers for this section because our food service workers isn't giving this out. And so, we'll continue. I am glad it was at least 160. So yeah.
Thank you.
So there was, so we, for many years, have been looking at, can we do online registration? With Synergy, we transitioned to Synergy in August, and we were able to start online registration as of this Monday. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows where it is. And is provided information. So this is the actual website. If you go into the website, at the very top, it says enrollment. If you just click on enrollment, then these are all the different tabs that you have that are all live links. And I'll kind of take you to it. There's 2 different big scenarios, right? One is registration of a student that's not an incoming kinder. These also this was one of the questions that was in the FAQ, so you can also refer back to the FAQ. But the key on this one right now is to call Student Services Department. So the number is there. They'll help you get all the paperwork together. We do have staff that is that's working. They're on the 3rd floor. They'll scan that and make sure and send it to the school site. Now that we have our office managers and attendance specialists are now there on Mondays and Fridays. So those are the 2 days of the week that they're at, that they're actually on site. And they will be the one to register the student and process all the paperwork. We have already done this, and this was as of last week. So this week we may have done a few more, but we have already welcomed 8 new students through this process. And so we feel that that it is a good process. For kinder registration, the packets are also now on the website. That started, online registration just started on Monday. We recognize some parents still don't have access online, especially if they're not a current parent. And so they can pick up those registration packets on Mondays only, but they can pick them up starting this coming Monday. And they can pick them up and return them during the same time to the administrators that are there doing the instructional packets. So if you wondered why that time, that is the time that we already have staff there.
Another question. To get a hold of those people who don't have like internet access, is there a way that we can make a little flyer that we can hand out at sites, like announcing that kindergarten is starting up?
Yeah, we definitely can. We are going to do more of that traditional work that you're referring to during Kinder Roundup. So that will happen in late May, early June. And I just mentioned on there, we're going to follow a physical distancing requirements because we don't know what it's going to look like at that time, but we definitely will. We also are working with the city on banners that are going to be going up and all the different work. It normally would have already been happening. So normally it would have been, we call it mes de matriculación. So March, madness, and we had to change it. But we do need to get some of this work done because there's a lot of work that will happen once we actually get those registration packets. I think one positive silver lining of us going all digital is the fact that it really pushed us to get the online registration done and up and running. So that's a good thing. So just technology support for community and staff. I just put these 2 up there. On the left-hand side, you see the number, the hotline number for parents and students, and down below you see the number for teachers. Something that's important is, and it really was a really fantastic idea that Dan Weiser, G, and the team put together. But on Tuesdays and Thursdays here in the district office in the roundabout, they don't get out of their cars, but they literally go around our big roundabout, and you will see about 8 to 10 techs that are out there. They go up to the window, they hand the Chromebook to the to the technician and say what's wrong, and right then and there they fix it. If they can't, they actually replace it. So I just want to say the high level work that's going. So just the week of April 6th, so this past week, not this week, but this past week, the team did 775 community hotline calls in 1 week. So we support in English, Spanish, and Mixteco. So we had 775 calls that we supported. Teacher hotline, they supported over 400 different teachers. We said 400 different because it's many, many more contacts, but 400 separate teachers. And then the drive-through that I just spoke about, they have in the week and a half that they've done it. So they did it last week, and then yesterday they've already fixed 117 computers. So I want people to know about that resource so that they can continue to help. Amy Fitzgerald, like we got her permission, got her this picture from her. She did a really nice quote that we posted online, and really just commending our Tech TOSAs for the phenomenal support and work that they've done. So I just wanted to make sure and recognize the lofty work that everyone has been doing to support as we kind of move forward. So more on technology support, right? One of the things that we frequently hear, whether it's staff or students, is hotspots, right? We did distribute the 750. One thing that we know is approximately 100 of those have never been turned on. So we're in the process right now of accessing those parents. We know who they are and saying, do you actually need this hotspot? If you don't need the hotspot, can we have it back? Because we have a list. We have been saying that the other 250 will be delivered. They assured us that it will be delivered this week. And so we will have the other 250 that we purchased going out. Thank you to Geese, who is in the other room. Through his contact with Google, we were one of the first school districts to actually request hotspots. So as you may or may not know, Google through CDE and the governor offered 100,000 free hotspots. And so we requested 3,000 of those. That's important because these hotspots, which we purchased, so the 1,000 that we're going to have will have a monthly charge to them, and we are obligated to pay that for 2 years. So it's not a free service for us versus the 3,000 that we're requesting from Google and CDE. We are going, those would be free for us and our families. And then we also, because we are now, we were admitted last year into the League of Innovative Schools, we have the supported digital promise. So we have requested an additional 500 free from Digital Promise. I have been speaking on this quite a bit lately, but really if we're talking about the digital divide on a community level, these hotspots are not what's going to get us there. Because these hotspots have a few things. One, they can only be used with PVUSD devices. And so because of that, and it filters, all that is really great for our students. But if you bring in a hotspot, although the hotspot can support up to 10 devices, all those devices have to be PVUSD devices. So a parent phone, a parent's laptop themselves won't support that. So what we've been doing is really working on the partnership with Cruise.io, Charter Spectrum, and just recently AT&T. So Cruise.io, you will see what we put out. They just, now it's been about a week and a half, but they were able to connect the first set of families. So we had about 40 students that were able to receive this support just about a week and a half ago. Some of those families also had hotspots. So again, we're trying to get back unused hotspots. Yeah.
Is there like a waiting list?
There is. So that's one reason why we want to get back the ones that are not being used, because instead of them sitting in a home not being used, we can tell if they've been turned on ever. And so there's about 100 that have never even been turned on. So remember, when they got their Chromebook, we asked them if they wanted it, and they weren't. So once we get those 100 back, or a portion of those 100 back, and we get this extra 250, then it's distribution.
How would, like, is there a number that parents can call?
Yes, so if they need it, they would call this hotline number. So the big number at the top, the 831, the 2493 is where they would call. Yeah, and that also through that number is how we are working with Cruise.io. So one thing that we're doing with Cruise.io is we're actually doing all the paperwork for our parents and support. So a parent can call that number, say, yes, I want to have Cruise.io, which is home internet. We're actually inputting it into a system. We're double verifying that they qualify for free and reduced. and then we're providing it. An extra step that we're doing is we're also talking to the apartment buildings, because what Cruise.io said is one of their main issues is that not all apartment building managements want to have the required hookup. And so from my office, we're working with those apartment buildings to say, hey, we have 10 families that are in your building. It will improve the, you know, the rentability of your apartment complex, and please continue to work in. AT&T is new. AT&T is only for the Pajero area, but it is a brand new service, and they have a much quicker turnaround now. So we're looking at doing that. So hopefully our 250 will come in, and we will immediately be able to disperse those. And then we'll continue to connect families with home access as well.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes.
So going back to the current partnerships that we're working on through Kuzio, Charter, Spectrum, and AT&T, when we're completing the paperwork for parents, do they require any sort of social security number?
No, they don't. And they don't, the parents actually, through these partnerships, are not providing any information at all. We're taking care of all the information. So we're doing the application for them.
Great, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, we tried to take away all of the unnecessary hurdles. So we took that on. So just starting to talk about distance learning, I'm going to talk about 3rd through 12th grade first. I want to note the incredible amount and number of students that are actually engaged in Google Classroom. So if you look here where it says Classroom, I'm talking about the chart up at the top. We had 16,320 students who were using Google Classroom. As of that week, you can see it's a significant increase from the 11,959 that were using it previously. So we are really proud of that work. There is still a gap. Obviously, one of the gaps is internet access for our students. But I want to recognize the fact of how many students that we have up and running and doing that work. Here's just a little bit of information. So as was noted, we did have 5 hours. Of course, a student usually is a 6-hour day, and then sometimes more, but a 6-hour day, and then has homework. Originally, we had said 5 after just 1 week, so it didn't take us long to change. But after 1 week, we heard from parents, we heard from teachers that 5 hours was too much. We did reduce down to 4 hours. We also clarified a few other things that I want to make sure is clarified. It is clarified, and I'll talk about the MOU in a bit, but it is clarified in the distance learning expectations as well. But that includes time spent on Zoom, Google Meet. It includes anything, whether it's independent reading or independent activity, physical education time. So for instance, a teacher is working, I'm a 5th grade teacher, I do a 45-minute Zoom with my students. Then the rest of the time, 3 hours and 15 minutes should be other activities that the students is doing. It could be anywhere from writing, doing 15-30 minutes of physical education. That is still a requirement. So we still are required to be doing physical education with our students. A lot of them are doing, either steps or Go Noodle. There's a lot of different programs. Our adaptive PE teachers are doing some really great things that frankly everyone can use, and they don't have to be special education students. So there's many reasons for the 4 hours. One, and I think it's the most important, is that we want to make sure that we are providing enough instruction for our students to where they are able to come back with not significant, highly significant just gaps. I recognize that there will be some regression that we're going to see, but we also, I believe, need to make sure that we're supporting those students. To support some of what was said, the instructional hours can be differentiated, and this went out, whether either increased or decreased based on student needs. And so students with special needs, it may be less, it may be more, ELD support, intervention, gifted and talented. For example, gifted and talented students, you would think, oh, well, they might need increase, but in reality, sometimes our gifted and talented students, a lot of them are perfectionists. A lot of them have significant challenges with not having things perfectly align the way that they want. And so because of that, sometimes you actually need a decreasing of hours, and you also need a differentiation of the projects in which they're required to support. We did clarify also that there's no additional homework assigned over and above the regular classroom work. So another issue that we were coming across was parents saying, okay, well, they have to do this, and then there's like this separate homework packet. So we made clear and clarified that it's 4 hours across the board. All teachers, because many of these things were just miscommunications. And so we sent out the expectations on this today that actually came from the work that was already mentioned. And again, I'll work towards that. I think another big thing is just tips on how to make the instruction more independent on the student level. So all this is new for many of us. I actually instructed online for many years. So I actually have quite a bit of skill set in this. But what I would say is what we do, we have to make sure that students are able to do as much as possible on an independent level. So we should not be expecting the parents to sit down for the 4 hours. If they are, then we're not providing instruction that's actually accessible and independent to students. So we need to make sure that we are doing that as well as we can, because they should not be. Now they may, and this is, having had a child myself, I understand they probably need to have a presence with them, but a lot of times, because of my significant work schedule for my son's whole life, he was sitting here doing the work, and I was sitting here doing my work, and I would just gently prod him along when I felt like he needed it. And so those are some things. You heard one of the teacher comments was about making learning engaging and trying to give teachers tips on how to get students online and how to continue to engage them. And so our coaches are supporting that, and teachers are supporting that, right? Just making sure that they actually know. So for TK2, first and second grade was reduced down to 4 hours, and again, including all activities and work. TK and kinder was reduced down to 2.5. It was 3 prior, and it was reduced down to 2.5 hours. We did provide Chromebooks to first and second grade students so that they can have a hybrid instructional model. So for example, a parent today was talking to me about Footsteps to Brilliance, and now that her child has a first grade, it's in first grade, has the Chromebook, is doing Footsteps to Brilliance. She said, oh, that's so much better because I don't have to actually do any of the, like that, the program can continue to engage my child, right? So that's one reason why we want the younger students to have the Chromebook as well, because they have access to Lexia, a Map Accelerator, Footsteps to Brilliance, and so forth. Some sites have SP Math as well.
I have a question for the next point. What about some things I've been hearing also? What about teachers that don't have Chromebooks or hotspots? Is there a way they could use one as well?
Yeah, so we have provided, and we have plenty of extra. So we have provided, do I have it on here? I thought I put on here now. So I put it in my email. It was 170 or so. I don't quote me on that because it was in my email and I had that exact number. But we have already provided close to 200 Chromebooks to staff. So if staff needs Chromebooks, we have them for you. So we still have significantly more Chromebooks than we need. So that is not a problem. So we have that. For hotspots, we have said that we have handed out hotspots as well to our staff that have no internet. So we are prioritizing students right now and staff that has no hotspot or no internet, and we have done that. Once we provide all of the students with hotspots, we very much, and that's something that was discussed during the demand to bargain, is we will then provide hotspots to teachers, no problem. I will say if they have home wireless internet, that is much, much faster than a hotspot. So it's much faster. Anything in wireless is much faster than the hotspot. So that is what I actually think happened with the parents that got the hotspots that didn't need it, is they thought that they were going to need something apart from their house wireless. And then they realized that they didn't need it. And that's why it's just sitting there. And that the timeline on that will all depend on how quick we can get the hotspots.
Is there someone to call to ask like if they're using them? Because he said you could see that when they're flicked on.
So they are already doing that.
Okay.
So we had to wait till April 1st to see, we had to get the bill. And from that, we could see which ones were not on. So April 1st, we got, or a little bit after April 1st, we had to wait till the bill like cut. But we do now know who, and we know that it's approximately 100. And so we are calling them and saying, hey, can we have them back? Or because we're assuming that after now, this is our 3rd week, we're assuming that if their child is online, that they must have something else, right?
100's a lot though.
100 is a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I know. So this was a request from Trustee Shocker, and we're getting this done. So the paper instructional packets, some are already up, but all will be posted on the individual websites starting next week. And that's really being done now that, thank you to office staff that's on site 2 days a week. So before, the only person that was there was the administrator, and they were already trying to support Chromebook distribution, packet distribution, and so also trying to get things scanned and uploaded wasn't a possibility. So we are going to be able to have the instructional packets done now. So that will be on there for people. I do hear people about the 4 hours. What I ask is that we continue with the change of the 4 hours. It's only been a week, right? Continue with the change for the 4 hours for now, and then flex as we need. And I hear what people are saying about the different things. I think some teachers had not got, although we thought everyone got it, that had not got the information about the reduction of the 4 hours until pretty recently. And so I think we'll continue to see that that move down. So distance learning supports for students with special needs. So there is a lot of conversation around documentation, impression of redundancy of IEP, but we have received pretty consistent and clear communication that we need to document how we are progressing towards each and every student's IEP goals. And if we do not, we will wind up getting ourselves in litigation. And these communication logs are something that we should do. I want to say, and I know I repeat myself quite a bit on this, but we are a level 4 non-compliant school district. that means when this ends and they ask us for our paperwork and for our audit, they will come to us first. And so I know people feel that it's a redundancy, but it's in the effort to ensure that we are meeting the demands of students and parents. And so we continue to make, we had multiple collaborative meetings with each and every program. So Life Skills had a different meeting than Duncan Holbert had and the other. And we are working to address that. But we cannot give in to taking away something that we know if we take it away will result in our receiving litigation. Because each time we litigate something, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars of district funds that goes towards litigation. And I repeat, we will be one of the first that they will look to. Starting last week, we had the instructional assistants and behavior techs. They were established as essential staff. They came back. They are working remotely. This is the group that mostly we gave our Chromebooks to and our hotspots, but they are communicating and supporting with students and families in coordination with the special education teachers. Our speech and language pathologists, you heard several comments from them. I do really give them credit for providing therapy through long distance learning. Right now, there's a lot of advocacy groups out there that is saying that we should provide double the time that's lost. So for example, if I lost 10 hours worth of speech and language services, that we will be required to provide 20 hours when we come back from distance from the distance learning. And so this work that they're doing with the live distance learning and or the instructional packets, they're doing it somewhat different, that really will not only benefit students because it's providing them continued services over these months, but it also will help us in the end. But it's also just good services, right, for kids. And other services like adaptive PE, occupational therapy are also providing services. So we have some really creative people out there doing some incredible work. Some of them have YouTube channels that they're putting videos on every week for students. It is true that teachers are going above and beyond and sending materials to their students and really showing the care. I would say on the mailing issue, if you give it to the principal, we can use our mail stamper here and we're more than happy to do that. But it's, we are providing a high level of supports for our students with special needs, and I think it's going to pay off for our students as well. Just a little bit of graduation requirement. So we did suspend the requirement for community service. Obviously, well, not obviously, some school districts continue to require community service, asking students to do things within their home and then having their parents sign off. I frankly felt like it was just a hoop that we didn't need to put pressure on our seniors for. So I just took it off because it would just talk about just a paperwork. It would have just been a paperwork for getting the form to them, their parents signing and returning this. We also did suspend the Saturday school requirement. So normally students that need to make up tardies and absences have to go to Saturday school on that. Obviously, they can't go to Saturday school right now. And frankly, I think it would be nonsensical to make them go to an online Saturday school. So we're not doing that. And so we are suspending that for the 2020 seniors. I wanted to note, you probably all saw this already, but we started working on our grading policy. We developed these guiding principles. It has bullet points under it. And that is being sent out. The schools, if you're school staff, you already received it. And if you are a community member, then I know that we're sending, if we haven't already sent it out, we're sending it out soon. It was important to have these principles so that we were guided, our choices were guided. So high school stakeholder input. I did the high school and middle school grading policy. I'm the one that personally did the stakeholder input just because we're all doing all the work. So I met with all the site administrators first. I met with higher education partners. I did meet with student leaders. We had 24 participants for high school. Each time that I met with a group, and that's the order I met with them, each time I met with a group, we refined the policy. And then I met with 52 teachers and counselors to move forward. We reached consensus on this. I developed both in English and Spanish a video that walks people through this process. So I won't spend too much time on it, but the main important thing for people was a couple of things. One, we have a no hold harmless policy so that if students cannot participate, that they are not they don't have consequences for it, or there's not a negative effect for it. While at the same time, there is an important point to really honor the work that the students had done up to that point. Especially this became apparent when I was talking to UCSC, but there were some really good points from that meeting. One is that this really isn't, I know seniors are feeling stressed, but this really isn't meant, I mean, it is for seniors as well, but it really isn't for seniors, because seniors, we know they've already submitted their applications. They already know whether or not they're in there. We also, because this is a nationwide pandemic, then we know that everyone is going to have leniencies with them. The group that we were most concerned about was actually our sophomores and somewhat our juniors. The juniors, probably because this has been such a challenging event, probably most places will continue to remember this for our juniors as well. But when this is in hindsight 2 years, we really don't know whether or not people will remember this, meaning private schools, scholarship foundations. And so it was important for us to have grades. We did do a consensus poll in each time. And except for one of the 52 participants, I think it was 52, yeah, 52 participants, we had consensus that this was the direction that we wanted to go. And so you can see it's bifurcated into 3 different levels. So students have a C or better, of course. This can be by content area, right? By section. So meaning I could be in the blue for English because I got a C or better in English, but I could be in the purple for math, right? Because it all depends on where you landed. The only good part of the timing, if there was a good part of the timing, was that we were just giving 3rd grade quarter grades right when we had to close. So we had really strong 3rd grade quarter grades. So luckily it didn't happen weeks beforehand, and we were able to do that.
So this is the model we're going to start using next year?
No, for this year.
Okay.
For this year only. So this is only
To
because of
finish.
distance learning. This is to finish this year. This is not for the upcoming. Yeah, for the upcoming, we'll go back to our regular process. This is only for distance learning. So we're doing a similar process for elementary and middle. And so we will wind up producing flow charts for all of them. Much of the teacher feedback and student feedback happened today, so it's not ready at this point. However, I will say that I got 100% teacher consensus from the middle school principals or middle school teachers and counselors, so I was pretty happy about that. So elementary, middle school, and site administrators, we met with them already. We met with student leaders from middle school sites. So I had 33. It was great this morning. We had 33 middle school students on with me and their principals this afternoon. Casey Klappenbach is doing the elementary version, and he worked with 19 elementary school teachers. And then I worked with 43 middle school participants, so teachers and counselors. And so we will be releasing that in the near future. And we are happy with the stakeholder input on elementary. because we won't have student participants, we're not really sure if eighth graders did a fantastic job today. So we knew they could do it. We're not sure about the fifth graders, not saying that fifth graders can't give us their opinion, but we're considering working with teachers instead, parents instead for the elementary version. And but we will have that out soon. So this is something new that we don't usually currently do here. So one thing that we want to do is for students to be able to take online credit recovery concurrent, so at the same time as their spring 2020 coursework. That will ensure that they can graduate on time. This concurrent coursework could start as early as Monday. We don't have to alter board policy, but we do need to alter ARs or admin regulations. And right now, it allows us to do it during, but what we want to do is add to that so that students can actually between now and virtual summer school earn up to 15 credits. And that would allow them to do the work. So we're excited to get this going because as you will see in this graphic, it is one of the options for students. So if you are a student in the yellow and you demonstrate that you're unable to participate, then one of the options is to do concurrent work or credit recovery. And so we want to make sure and have that option for students. Another is adult education. So adult education has been really supportive of our students because it's all about knowing that having a student with 8, well, in total it's going to be 10, but 7 weeks left of no instruction is not good for them, right? So what we want to do is try to be as flexible as possible and identify other options for them from independent study, adult ed, credit recovery, and even paper packets.
Is that on the website, the school website, the colored chart? That grading policy?
It just got released yesterday, so
Okay.
I am not sure if it is.
That's one of the things I've been hearing.
Yeah. It will be on soon enough. I haven't checked emails really today, so I don't know if it has been sent out. I sent it out to all staff yesterday. And I developed the video. We put the video already on the website. And then summer school is going to have to look different. So we know for K-8, so we are, and Newsom is even talking about into the new school year, things looking a little bit different, but definitely in June and July, it's not going to look the way that it usually did. And so we are, for K-8 students, we are going to be providing summer enrichment packets, but it's going to be much more of an enrichment. We are going to continue to do our collaborations with the partner organizations that you see there. For 9th through 12th, we will do credit recovery through Edgenuity, and they'll be able to apply. They'll be able to put in their application for May for the June session in May. If they have any questions, they can contact Extended Learning now, either at that phone number or at that email address. And so the credit recovery option, and I should have put that, it's kind of there, it's hidden a little bit, it's all online. So they won't be coming into a school site. It will be similar to right now in a way, in that it will be in their homes, but it will be using Edgenuity, which is a credit recovery program. Teachers will be supporting it. So very similar to what we do now, we have what we call a blended approach, where we have teachers that are supporting the students as they move through credit recovery, and that will continue to happen. It's just we won't have them physically in a building with us. And then we will continue to expand our literacy program that we established last year. So last year we did a big push with Watsonville Public Library. Students don't need to pre-register to participate, so we're doing a lot of enrichment with our community partners. we already had a Jumpstart program and Bridge program, but we're going to expand it so that students that need additional supports can come. That will be in early August. The goal right now will be to have that be in person. If things need to change, we will do so. But we hope to be able to have them back on the campuses and being provided this support. So graduation. So Kristen Chaus is doing a really fantastic job helping support graduation celebrations. So here is what has happened so far. So you can see that on Monday of this week, she started working with high school administrators. On Tuesday, she started working with the site activities director, and she worked with student representatives from each site, as well as the ASB coordinators and site administrators. On Monday of this coming week, there is going to be a webinar for activities directors called Honoring the Class of 2020. And we will be handing out a student parent survey. If you look at the very far box at the bottom, so here I'll show you with my far box at the bottom, we're going to be launching a survey that is anticipated to go out on Tuesday of next week. Here are a few possible ceremony options that may or may not be included in the survey. So these are the highlights from those other conversations with students and activity directors. So some of the thoughts of what we might put on the survey is seeing if students want to postpone the physical graduation to August or winter break of next year. A virtual option if physical graduation is not possible. So for example, if we feel that that we wouldn't be able to do a physical graduation even in August, I always say that one of the hardest emotions to get around is disappointment, which I know our seniors are feeling, right? If you're angry, you can kind of stop being angry. If you're sad, you can cheer yourself up. Being disappointed, I always think is one of the hardest emotions to do. And so what I want to make sure on this, and the reason why I'm pointing it out, is it will not be good for our seniors if we say that we're postponing in August and then can't even do it in August. That will be like the worst thing that we can do. So anyways, these are just some thoughts. Also, one of the ideas, not saying that we're going to do it, but we will put it in the survey, cancellation of the ceremony. Next, doing a graduation gathering, so in person in addition to virtual when it's safe to do so. So almost like a reunion type, right? Where we do the virtual, and then when it's safe to do so, we do the graduation gathering. A video ceremony with speeches and photos. So we have people tape it, and then we create a video for each school site. And then another thought was drive-through parade or drive-through diploma distribution. So just going back to the timeline, I would just let people know, and people out there that are watching, that they should, if they are a senior parent or a senior student, they will receive the survey. And so please fill it out. Generally, surveys in general only get about a 33% return rate. And so let's get a better return rate than that. Because your voice matters, but just so that you know, most surveys in general, just any survey, gets about only a 33% return rate.
Two quick questions. So when will that survey go out, more or less?
Tuesday, the 21st.
Tuesday.
Uh-huh.
And my second question is, for example, Aptos might want to do something different from Watsonville. How would that work?
So inside the survey, they will be checking what school they belong to. So we'll be able to look at that data. Yeah, I think, so an example, I think we can do different things. I don't think it has to be the same thing, unless, for example, an example is from everything that's indicated, we know we can't have an August, I'm just making this up, but an August graduation. then one of the options can't be an August graduation, right? If we find out it's just probably not going to be possible. But we'll find out. We'll know all the, we'll know that data pretty soon. So
make sure everybody does their surveys, please.
Yeah, let us know what you think. So let's talk about childcare providers. So the governor came out with an executive order talking about providing sustained family childcare homes specifically for essential workers. We saw it coming because, as you all know, there were 3 mandates, original mandates with the executive order from the governor that we had to provide distance learning, food services, and childcare. So we had been doing distance learning and food services for a long time. And so we had been holding off on childcare because frankly, it seemed counter to everything else that the health department was saying. So the health department is saying shelter in place. The health department is saying don't congregate with people that are not in your family. And so it seemed counterintuitive to do that. Because we saw it coming, we are completing already, and it should say and inventory to determine available spots. We do know right now that a lot of people are not using the current childcare homes that are available because a lot of people don't feel comfortable sending their child to a house that has people from other family members. We are also going to be sending out a survey to families of the 104 ECE students that normally would have been in those spots to determine their current childcare needs. We will prioritize the spaces for essential workers. The new regulations that just came out have two things going on. One, and they always could, child care centers, home child care centers can serve school-aged children, but the new regulation is that sibling groups are to be placed together, which makes sense, of course. But meaning, I'll give you an example of why they probably said that had to happen. So instead of a home saying, well, I only support students age 3 to 2nd grade, and then another home saying I support older students, now we have to have sibling groups together. They're not allowed to be separated. Another regulation set forth is only 10 children per site. I do want you to know these are our family childcare homes. They're not within our schools. They're within people's homes. They never shut down. So they didn't wind up shutting, they weren't told to shut down because they were considered an essential service. And so we do know that we have spots in those homes. We just need to complete an inventory. The reason why it's not easy peasy for us to figure it out, which is why we're doing the inventory, is because they don't have to be through PVUSD in order to have access to that site. And so they can be just someone within the community. Migrant seasonal Head Start home care providers will also be supported and functioning. So that is happening or will be happening at the home centers. At this point, we have not broached the subject with doing it on one of our sites at this time because we are being told that the demand is not there. So we can't even fill our current slots. So there's no real need to do the other. Want to talk about this. So we did meet with PVFT. It was mentioned, Nellie mentioned it. The team met. We did establish an MOU addendum that was signed and the distance learning expectations. And so I encourage people to look at those. Some of the things that I just want to, it is within the learning distance expectations, but I just want to make sure it's super clear, is to teachers out there and parents so that they know, if you are in Google Classroom and you provide access to your principals, you do not, I repeat, You do not need to do lesson plans. That is in the learning expectations. It's always been in there. And so I encourage you to look at that. What I want you to do is I want you to focus on your students, not on not on laborious expectations that we have for you. That is why you can do that. The only key difference is in terms of special education, because we have an obligation to meet the IEP goals of our students. And so I encourage you to continue to focus on distance learning with students. It is so much easier if you're not on Google Classroom. That is the way to go, because then you don't have to provide lesson plans, right? Then a principal can go in and see all the work that they want. But we also are held accountable to our community and our students. So we need a way in order to be able to ensure that our students' needs are being met, and specifically for special ed, we have to make sure that we are addressing each and every one of their goals. And so I encourage you guys to look at the signed MOU addendum and the distance learning expectations as you are moving, as you're moving forward. We did meet with CSEA. Our past MOU expired on Monday, and we started that today, and then we plan on reconvening on Friday. And so I will we'll go over that. Now just essential staff precautions. So one thing that we've tried to do is we did ask staff to come back April 6th. We have instituted a lot of precautions. These precautions, just so you know, if you are a remote member of our team and you work remotely, these safety precautions do not pertain to you, because this is people who physically must be present. And so we have done staggered shifts, so start and end times that are different. We have done flex schedules, so reduce the amount of work days. So for example, for M&O, we did a 3-10 work day. So that means that you work 3 days, 10 hours, so they don't work on Mondays and Fridays. We did that because there are people on staff on Mondays and Fridays, and that helps with the physical distancing. We have provided hand sanitizers, gloves, protective wear, masks. We have provided 150 masks up to now. We have 100 more masks that are coming in on Thursday or Friday. And then on Wednesday of next week, we're getting 200 more. I do want to note that you don't have to have an actual mask. You can use any cloths, but we are providing masks that are washable, that have a filter in them. And so currently you should be talking to your supervisor if you want one or need one. We provided laptops when possible to work from home. So human resources received them, accounting received them. We handed them out to instructional assistants, to behavior techs. And so when possible, people are working from home. We did sanitize all the facilities, and that includes everything that's listed there, from the actual trucks to the tools to the white fleets to the service trucks. In the past, we had people working in partners. So we had 2 people in one truck. We now have implemented single-use truck. So people are no longer partnered together. So they come to work, they get in a car that has been, or truck that's been cleaned out. They're by themselves. They go to the site, they work, they're by themselves at the site. We're only implementing things that require one person. And then they repeat that. We are limiting face-to-face meetings and increasing conference calls and emails. Just wanted to note that for CSEA, and the reason why this is all CSEA focused is because for, except for very, very few, and it's mostly just management, most of our PFT staff is all working remotely. So that's why this is focused on CSEA. but we are following the first MOU, which did expire on Monday, but it's a benefit to them, is any employee who's part of a vulnerable group, including staff that's over 65, weakened immune systems, serious long-term health issues, or pregnancy are allowed to stay home, no questions asked. So if they're 65, all they had to do was do an email saying, I'm 65, I'm staying home, and they did. Now, for staff caring for an individual with a high risk for complications due to COVID, they may stay home, but they do need a doctor's note in terms of that. And that's just following the leaves requirements that were just sent out by the state. So I just want to go over a few of the essential primary duties. So today we did have our CHP audit. I know that we actually, it's not good news, but we failed our last inspection, our last audit. We did not pass. And so we needed to be able to have people in to work on the buses. I know that the first set of buses, at least that the CHP did pass, all of them passed. And I want to give it to our heavy diesel mechanics, and I just butchered their title, but the heavy mechanics for the work that they did in order to get it. But CHP today said you need to keep your mechanics working on your buses nonstop, right? And so we need to continue to do that. We have site and federal compliance on our maintenance that they are not waiving. And so we need to continue to do those maintenance so that we can meet safety compliance. I want to note that if we would have failed the audit again, we would have shut down the bus barn. That would have meant when we came back, we would not have had buses for the thousands of students that use our buses. And so that is, it was important for that. For maintenance and operations, yes.
Is the live link working? Anybody? Maria?
It is.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to check because someone said that the live link wasn't working.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify. Thank you.
And so then for maintenance and operations, we brought people back on April 6th. As we said, we've begun to repair approximately 60 leaks. We have currently about 60 leaks throughout the district. They are presenting not only a mold issue if we don't fix it, but also additional damage to our school property, our equipment, and our furniture. We have had to repair sewage backups and standing gray water issues. So standing gray water means that is sewer water, and that's not good. So we've already done that. We have started to work on repairs from the Williams inspection and the OSHA finding reports. We began to change filters, cut grass and weeds. The grass and weeds, it feels like it's not important, but it actually directly is. So I was walking by PVHS, and this actually isn't a story, it's the truth. So I was walking by PVHS. I walk close because I live by there. I walk to the site all the time to look at our construction. And I was walking by a whole pile. They've now started to clean it, the whole large area of grass. And what came out was actually a mouse and a snake. And so I move faster than I have moved in a long time. But that is what is happening when we have continual grass and lots of it. And so it also produces ticks, lice, and spreads Lyme disease. So we need to make sure and do that work. We're repairing trip hazards and all of that. Something that I just want to mention is that we do have aging facilities and grounds that are in disrepair. And leaving grounds and facilities unkept for months will wind up causing us to have to come back to facilities that are not even as good as we left them. I wanted to note we have had 7 OSHA complaints in the last several years, and we paid fines for those. I want to note some of what the complaints were that were actually found to be true. So air conditioning, heating, ventilation systems not being maintained in safe conditions, uneven sidewalks, fire hazards, roof leaks causing possible mold in classrooms. The other I want to note is we so need our staff, and every single employee in this district knows that, right? We need them to such an effect that I wanted to know how much we need them. So between January to February 2020, so right before we stopped, well, a month before, but right before we stopped, we paid $558,182 alone for classified overtime, extra time, supplemental, and subs. So $500,000 in 1 month. It's that way because we have such a need. It's that way because we have so many work orders and we have such a need in our buildings to fix them. And I mention that because we have to have people working on things that allow us to not have these OSHA complaints, right? And we have been better about not having non-compliance complaints because we've been asking staff to do a lot of work. But, and I know the board knows this, I just want public to know it, and our May revise will show it. The Department of Finance outlook says we are going to have a recession greater than the Great Depression. I'll repeat that. We're going to have a recession greater than the Great Depression. And so we will not have the funding to support additional spending above base salary once our schools open. We are not going to have it because we are going to be cut significantly. We know we're going to have deferrals and we know we are going to have mid-year cuts next year. And so I speak to the essential workers and the importance of keeping them working so that we can do the work. And we had a few essential workers that really wanted to talk about the good work that they're doing. And so I wanted to play this for you. It's just 3 minutes long, so I hope you enjoy it.
My name is Gus Paz. I've been working for the school district for over 19 years. May the 1st will be 20 years.
As an essential employee for PVUSD, do you feel your work has a positive impact on our schools, students, and families?
I think it does. I take a lot of pride in what I do.
And what are some examples of the work you were able to complete and accomplish during this time?
Well, right now, this roof, I pressure washed this whole roof that we probably wouldn't have been able to do. We'd be doing in the summertime to repair some of the roof leaks that are leaking inside the cafeteria area and finding different areas that have leaks like this HVAC unit where it's connected to the ductwork and to the unit. So that the HVAC guys need to come out and take care of this.
Steve Gregg, lead groundskeeper, been here 13 years. My helpers are Pablo Picasso, John Leva, hard workers. We do all the irrigation, backhoe work, leveling of fields, do the tracks after winter. Basically, we follow through doing all the fencings, play structures, all the stuff that the other crews are, they do the mowing of the lawns, they do all the landscaping stuff. We do all the underground, above ground stuff that following up on them, whatever's broken, we fix.
I'm Chris Wheeler. I'm a heavy equipment mechanic and I have about 7.5 years here.
I'm Rocky Bays, heavy equipment mechanic. I've been here going on my 4th year.
All right. First off is, as an essential employee for PVUSD, do you feel you're doing the positive work and having an impact on our schools and students and families?
Yeah, I believe so. This is a good time to work on the buses and do everything we can't do during normal time because the buses are out running. So I feel this is a good time right now for us to get stuff done.
Crack down on the big work and knock out all the services, make sure everything's up to par safety-wise, and
Yeah, that way-
CHP compliant.
So when the students are ready to go back, the buses are ready to and safe for everyone, drivers and students.
My name is Freddie Villafuerte. I have 25 years plus in the district. I initially started at H.A. Hyde and Freedom School. So here I am at Ansoldo, and I'm the lead custodian. Very proud to be the lead custodian here.
All right. As an essential employee for PVUSD, do you feel your work has a positive impact on our schools, our students, and families?
Yes, it does. I believe we have a crucial role in our kids' education to have their schools sanitized and have a safe place for kids to learn. It's very crucial, the job that we do, and I really take that to heart, and that's what I provide and promote with my staff as well, and with my other custodial staff. We do our best to have a safe and healthy environment for our kids to learn.
My name's Herman Hermelino Rocha. I've been here 16 years with the district and going strong.
And you're able to get work done right now that you wouldn't have been able to do if kids were in school.
Obviously, this is the best time for that. And we're taking advantage and do the best we can.
Well, on behalf of PVUSD, I want to say thank you. We appreciate you. Keep up the great work and commitment, and definitely keep up the all-in, everyday positive attitude. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
So those were, oh, hold on. Okay, got it. So those were just a few employees that spoke to just the important work that we know that they are doing. And so thank you to all the essential workers out there that are doing the work. So kind of going to that, the appreciation and celebration, we have been doing morning delivery surprises. So you might have seen me on Twitter. I was out a few weeks back doing breakfast burritos. Want to note that we used our personal money for that, and donuts for food service workers. You probably have seen from some of the sites, the Spirit Weeks that have been going on. We are going to be starting something new that is student and staff connection outreach postcards. So people will be receiving these from me soon, and then they all will also receive them if they want to provide them to their students. And we have 4 different versions of them. We also, we're going to be doing some community events that people can safely do from inside their homes. So some scavenger hunts with some fun prizes that are donated. Residential door or window displays, or some of the principals have been doing like Facebook Lives, cooking with the principal, some of these fun activities. And so we want to continue to engage our community and do so even more than we have been doing. I think this is something that now that we've kind of got started and got the work going, we want to try to ramp this piece up as we go forward. Pajaro Valley has incredible partners. So local community partners and nonprofits are knocking it out of the park for us. So PVPSA, I do want to mention, I know I'm hearing a lot about social emotional needs of our students. We have spots and time at PVPSA. So we do not have enough students that are going to their appointments and that are accessing these services. So I encourage them, if you have any needs, to reach out to your counselors or reach out to PVPSA directly. We have therapists that are ready to support our students, and so I really encourage that.
So will that be done online, or are they able, or if they need to show up, can they show up?
It's all online. It's called teletherapy.
Okay.
Yeah, it is all online, and that's what we feel maybe is hindering some people. They make an appointment and then they're not getting online, and all that. Second Harvest Food Bank, I've already kind of talked about that. We're trying to continue to increase the bags, 3 sites a week. EPC, which is Educational Partnership Center, that you'll remember the district actually pays for. So that's our College and Career Center staff. It is through UCSC, but they're providing tutoring and college application assistance. CASA is doing a lot of work with our foster youth and us on educational support. So we're really tracking the foster youth, see what can happen. Food What is helping us with student outreach and mentoring. And then Pajaro Valley Community Health Trust is working on nutrition and wellness webinars. Tonight was the first night that we are doing mindfulness trainings for parents. So that's happening at 5 p.m. every Wednesday. And so we encourage parents. I think that's something new that we're doing, is really trying to not only support students, but also trying to support parents at the same time. Youth Now is doing great work with our high school students. So if students are out there and need additional support, you can get it either through your own teachers, through EPC, or through Youth Now. And then Digital Nest, it should say and, not ands, is providing technology assistant and mentoring. And then Alliance for Healthier Generation, they are doing webinars for educators on stress management and the work that we're doing. And so that is my report.
Thank you very much. Are there any public speakers to this discussion item?
No, just at the initial comments.
Just real quick before I start asking everybody for their question. Michelle, I'm not sure if you've seen what the Pajaronian came up with a couple hours ago, saying that they're looking at a 10% reduction regarding staff. They're looking like at a budget of a $5.7 million the coming fiscal year, and it could be as much as $8 million due to this COVID-19. Have we looked into that? Okay.
Yeah, so we'll know for sure by the May revise, but it's looking very much like we will have to cut $5 million.
I just wanted to ask, because whatever happens to the city happens to us, and I want us to try to work together on this, and so I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, comments?
I do.
Trustee Holm?
Let me continue, because in case they want me to go back to slides.
So real quick, you actually answered a lot of my questions about the essential employees and the tech resources for staff. I'm just scrolling through. I wanted to say that I really appreciated that, we're including students in the discussions. I think that that is so incredibly important in supporting them and having agency in what could be a very disruptive time in their lives. So thank you, and please continue. In terms of, I just wanted to clarify something about the safety for workers on jobs. Since we're just having them do the jobs they can do solo, are we deferring the jobs that require 2 people for now? Yeah. Okay. And in terms of for the early childhood education, I was just thinking, if there's a limit to 10 children in the home, is that inventory going to help us identify, like if siblings need to be together, but normally that sibling wouldn't be there, will that help us identify where they can be?
Yes, sufficient space, yeah.
And then for SILPA, in terms of, are there any, what are we looking for, like for next? What are our realistic goals right now, where we're just trying to identify them, and then what are next steps for supporting our IEPs and our SILPA students?
So we are, when necessary, we will make revisions to the IEPs. Right now, what we're trying to do is see if we can do our best to fulfill the IEP goals. I think with staff, I don't know how many we've altered at this point, or if we have altered them. I think now we're in the middle of 2.5 weeks. So we've now almost done 3 weeks. So I think that the main reason why the matrix are also important is if we can't actually support those goals, then we need to know it, and then we need to make the revisions and have the addendum IEP meetings. There's a lot of challenges to that, just physicality, being able to physically be with someone, but that's something that I can make sure that we were considering when we're looking at the matrix and just growth progress.
Thank you.
Trustee Orozco, did you want to say anything? I see your name in the box right here.
Sorry, I'm muting and unmuting. Oh boy. Yeah, so just to piggyback on SELPA services, would these, would they be continuing over summer?
So it all depends if they get extended school year. If they get extended school year, then we will have to find a way. So there will be, Heather mentioned that when we were doing the update for special education, that the great majority of the students do not get extended school year, but that is a possibility. I think what we would need to do is know when would that occur. So especially if online distance learning hasn't been working for the student, probably doing more of the same is not a good thought. And so we would probably want to wait and do it similar to what we're doing with the Jumpstart and do it more in August. Normally we have very few students that get extended school year. That might be something that list may increase as this goes. I'll put that down for us to be looking at how much that changes this school year. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. And going back to the statistics you provided as far as student engagement goes, I just want a clarifying question on that.
Sure.
There was a 16,000 number that you provided us with. Are those students or are those engagements? It could be multiple engagements from different students throughout the week. In other words, did we get rid of duplicate engagements?
So, so those are weekly active users. So if you look at the very top where it says last 3 months, and then it says weekly active users. So these are individuals. They're not, they are not redundant occasions.
Got it. Thank you for that.
And they have to be considered active users. So I could find out what that determination is. It's not that they got on for 2 minutes and then got off, but I can find out the specific parameters of what Google Classroom considers an active user.
Okay, yeah, that would be good. Okay. As a special ed parent, it's been great to be able to collaborate with my son's SLP and OT, but I think what would be helpful, after those sessions would be to sort of have weekly goals that we can focus on, depending on, the goals of each student.
So that you would be able to have that if you through the IEP matrix. So that's one reason why we want to do that, so that parents know what those goals are and how it relates to the instruction.
And so those are being provided to all parents with special needs students?
No, that's what we were working on. That was part of the conversation that we've been having the last 3 sessions with PVUSD. And so that we're focusing on that, not only again for parent communication's sake, but also for ensuring that we're meeting the goals of students. So going back to Jennifer's question of, what do we do if we're not making progress, right? And so we have to know what the goals are and be tracking progress on goals to know that we're not making the progress and thus change the goals. So it's very possible that you have not seen that.
Okay. So as far as possible reimbursements for additional materials, let's say ink cartridges or other things that teachers may be purchasing at home. Is there any way for us to utilize the funding that was not spent? Was not spent out of the initial material allowance that teachers were given? Could we reallocate that for now?
So we did have a large surge at the end of teachers actually using that. I guess I would say on the ink cartridges is I'm trying to understand what they're printing. So they are doing everything virtually with their students for the most part. Now I will say I understand like SLPs and other things that are making, but the general teacher now especially 2nd through 12, but definitely 3rd through 12. I heard from a lot of high school the ink cartridge, and I just don't know who they're printing for, because they're not printing for administration, because they are just opening up their Google Classroom, especially at the high school level. The grand majority are using Google Classroom. So I guess I would just have to know what it was for. I don't know why they would be printing out things. I mean, I guess they could be printing out things and then scanning them, but I would just do a screenshot and make it a PDF and then upload it. So I'm not sure what they're using it for.
Yeah, I mean, and that question was not just related to teachers. Specific, what I've seen, at least through the sessions that my son has had, they do use a lot of printed material. So just, I guess, being mindful that they may be, you know, additional out-of-pocket costs that staff is coming across the board. I don't know if it would be a huge undertaking to have a reimbursement process in place, if there's a way for us to know that whatever they're spending on materials is actually related to, you know, the work that they're doing for students. So just a thought. I know that's an option that we can explore.
Yeah, I mean, we could have a conversation with, we could have a conversation with Palace to see if we could do something with them. I think it would be good for us to have a conversation about what those supplies are, and then figure out specifically. I do, and when you say the sessions with your son, I do agree that the support teachers, whether they're OT, SLPs, they are using many more materials because their live therapy sessions require the materials for them. And so we could have a conversation with that. I will just say, we're going to be in the process of cutting $5 million from the budget, plus not receiving the millions that we thought we were going to get, which we didn't budget because it wasn't guaranteed. So in essence, we're going to lose about $8 million that we were hoping we would have. And that's a pretty good chunk of money. $8 million is a lot of money. So it's not a no. We just, we have to be really cautious with what we do. Right now we have only been reimbursed 330,000 or so and we've expended over $800,000 on COVID-19. And so I think it's a conversation of what do we really need, and is there a way to get around that? So can they be provided, for example, can we work with Business with Pleasure and the items actually get copied by them? I mean, there's, I think it's just a conversation of where are the expenses, and then trying to figure out the easiest and fastest way to get that resolved. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's just having the conversation, and maybe, part of that conversation is coming up with those creative solutions.
Okay.
So just a thought. Also, is a lunch program or a lunch?
Can I add something to that real quick?
Sure.
The whole thing with being reimbursed, is there a way to speed that up? Like, hey, just to kind of push our receipts to the front of the line somehow to somebody to say, hey, we need to get reimbursed?
Well, right now we have that whole staff on rotation. And so it would probably take more time, not less time than normal.
Like, where do the requests get made to? Like,
well, right now we have an approved request for reimbursements because we don't have a funding source for that. And we need to have guidelines for who gets reimbursed for what. Because you can't just do anyone reimburse anything because we don't have thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in order to do that work, or hundreds of thousands. It's not gonna be
I just meant more as like where, the state says they have this money for reimbursement and through the Department of Education, is there a way we can log and say, hey?
Yeah, well, we did receive that money, but it was 330,000 and we have spent 800,000 already with no reimbursements. So I know that the state continues to say that they have money for us. And you mentioned it with the city, but they're robbing Paul to pay Peter, right? So they may be saying, don't worry about COVID-19, but then what they're doing is they are going to then shortchange us next year, right? And so, they're doing a workload budget, which means that they're going to lower our COLA. They are going to do deferrals. You have limited staff that does reimbursements, but before we even talk about who processes the reimbursements, you have to have guidelines. Because we have to substantiate that we are paying for things that we legally can pay for with public funds.
Sorry about that, Marie.
Trustee Orozco and President Trustee Dodge, do you mind if I interject? I just wanted to get an elaboration on something the superintendent just said. You're saying that we've spent 800,000, we've received 330,000. What was the 800,000 spent on?
600,000 was spent on the cleaning crews, and the remainder was spent on hotspots.
Okay, thank you for the elaboration. Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry about that, Maria. Go ahead.
That's all right. So currently we're distributing meals to students. Would this be continuing over the summer?
Yes, it has a really bad name, but it is called the Summer Feed Program, and I know it's a really bad name. Hopefully they'll change it sometime soon. But yeah, so the Summer Feed Program would continue all the way till we start school, so there won't be interruption. So I so appreciate our food service workers. They got off the week of spring break, and they got off April 10th, and those are the only days that they have taken off. So really hats off to them and the work that they're doing.
Thank you. And then lastly, I just want to highlight or thank you for putting together the as a superintendent option for parents and for just the larger community. I think it's a good resource to have in place. Even as a board trustee, when I get inquiries, I can turn to that and I have the answer there. So that has been really effective for me in offering a response to community questions that I've gone over the last couple of days. So with that, I think that's everything I have for now. There might be other questions I might think of.
Thank you. Trustee DeStefano, are you there? Trustee DeSerpa? Karen, Trustee Osmondson, I'm sorry. Are you there? Trustee Shocker, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. How are you?
Thank you.
Okay, good. So I have just some things. I'm going to piggyback on Maria's thing for a minute where she mentioned about reimbursement. One, I think it is a good idea to get a look at to see if there's any money left in that incentive fund that we did, and try and build a reimbursement program with those funds. Also, is it possible to look at school site funds to see what hasn't been utilized at the sites, and if possibly do a site reimbursement for some of the needs that we will determine what is reimbursable and what is not. I do think support teachers are going through more materials. I have seen some of their YouTube presentations where they are using printed materials, and I understand that those will vary between students. So if we can look at some of the budgets, that would be great.
Sure.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
I said sure.
Okay. Okay, I'm just making sure because my internet's a little crazy. As far as distance learning, I know, and we've asked parents to be patient, teachers to be patient. This is a learning process. I am glad that information went out today to reduce the number of hours. I noticed that some sites are a little better at planning than others, which is great. Some of them are doing a choice board and allowing parents and students to choose options to be completed and giving one general due date. So say they're giving their choice boards on Mondays, they're asked to have the assignments returned the following Monday. So it gives students over the weekend to work. This would benefit parents who are out during the work day, during the week. This will give them time to help their students. I also think it's important how you have emphasized that we do things like independent learning, where those plans can be turned into like the teachers instead of some of the assignments. And so it's something to kind of look at and collaborate with and make it maybe a little bit more streamlined and easier for some of the sites. There's still a lot of complaints about too much work for younger students at Valencia, for instance. I heard from a lot of parents from there that their second graders, third graders are still being asked to do too much work online.
I'm sorry, Jennifer. I was just making sure I froze, so I was making sure that I could go to a slide if you needed me to. So
Okay.
Judy was helping me, so thanks.
Okay, no problem. It's just making sure it's all good. I know you mentioned earlier, Dr. Rodriguez, about that we are sending text out. I just wanted to get a clarification. Are we sending out text about food distribution, attendance? What exactly are we sending text out for?
So anytime that we are doing a community-wide communication, then we are doing it with an active link. And so multiple have gone out already. So it's anytime it's a massive wide communication, that's what we're sending. So they receive a text message and the robocall simultaneously.
Okay,
So,
but are we just sending that out about attendance? Are we sending that out about the food distribution sites? What exactly are we sending these robocalls out about?
For a combination of everything from letters from me to the grading policy, anything that we think a large group of parents would want to know. So for the grading policy, we did just send it out to the high school parents because the grading policy is specifically for high school, and we'll do the same for elementary and then the same for middle. But we also are trying not to confuse people or give people information that they don't need.
Okay.
And then our community partners receive all of it, K-12.
Okay. Okay, so have we had any teachers saying that they don't have computers at home where they can implement distance learning, or they need Chromebooks? Have those been made available for teachers who need them?
Yeah, so Chromebooks has not been a problem. And so every person that has told us that they need a Chromebook has received one.
Okay.
Hotspots is not the case.
Right.
We have provided hotspots and we have a few left. We have provided hotspots to teachers that say, or staff, teachers or staff that say they have no internet. We have not provided it to anyone that has said that they have slow internet at this point.
Okay. Do the teachers also qualify for the incentive programs by AT&T and Spectrum and everything else?
No, because they don't fit the income requirement. So they have to be free and reduced lunch. And so that's why we're doing that for parents, because it was becoming an issue of them producing paperwork to show that they receive free and reduced lunch. So
Okay.
we're doing that paperwork now, but teachers, they earn too much. I know it's a challenge because they earn just enough not to get any of the benefits, but not enough to easily live in Santa Cruz County, but unfortunately they don't qualify.
Okay. Now, I've heard some complaints about some of the speech pathologists and support teachers saying they couldn't get back into classrooms to pick up materials, but we're allowing them in classrooms on Mondays and Fridays, correct?
That is correct. Just those 2 days though. Yes.
Right. Yes. Because I know that we made a point, both Maria and I did at the last minute, concerning keeping teachers out of classrooms as much as possible, that they shouldn't be working out of their classrooms, that limited supply pickup, just because we did spend money to get the sites disinfected. And that was a necessary expense because, as we know, we don't know a lot about this virus with the way it works. It replicates itself, the way it lives on surfaces. So that was something that we needed to be done for the safety of our staff and our students. We have some complaints about the process with IEPs, and Maria brought up a point from the parents' perspective. From the teacher's perspective, they're saying there's already procedures in place that they shouldn't have to do this dual work. What procedures do we have in place right now with the special ed teachers, with getting the IEPs accomplished through distance learning? What extra step are we asking them to do?
So we're asking them to do the IEP matrix. The redundancy of what they're referring to is that if you go into the student management system, it has those goals there. What we're asking them to do, and they only have to do it once for each child, one time, not once a week, not once a year, just once. And they have to go in, they do need to cut and paste those goals for each of their children, each of the children that they're case managers for, in the matrix. That's necessary because you have to be able to then show these are the goals and this is how we are making modifications and accommodations for those goals. And so it's a one-time shot, but they need to do that. Of almost all of the litigation that we have been involved in, it has been because we have not adhered to having accommodations and modifications to students' goals. So it's ones that have been left off, ones that we for a year or more haven't actually done instruction around. So yes, it is a one-time shot, but it is something that they can do and we need to do. We have been consistently on the phone with CDE. We, as I mentioned, we're level 4, so we have our own person, and we have been on the phone with them saying, what do we need as a bare minimum to show that we are doing what's right for kids? And it was established, we have altered that IEP matrix multiple times to reduce the redundancy, but they do need to do that. And they need to be able to show that they are making modifications and accommodations to each one of the goals as necessary. And so that's what we're doing. What they're saying is it's in a system. Yes, it is in a system, but that system won't help us track goals the way that we need to. And so some are using a communication log to do that, and some are doing using other things. We have been very lenient and said, I mean, we're trying, and I do hold hard to what I said before. I want them to focus on the kids. I don't need them to do busy work. I don't like busy work. I don't want them doing busy work. But unfortunately, special education is compliance driven in terms of paperwork, and that's where the rub is, right? Is what is enough and what's not enough, and we need to be able to open any students' IEP forms and be able to explicitly show how we're doing that. And so we believe we have made modifications. Want to make note, we only have 3 teachers at the elementary level that have not completed their matrix. 3. That's it. 3.
Okay.
So we don't have many. We only need those 3 to do it, and then we can check that off.
Okay. Well, I'm just wondering, like, why can't they use the current system? What's the problem with logging it in the current system?
Because it can't actually, so that doesn't, the IEP system, and I, for the life of me, can't remember the name of the brand new system, but that, that system is meant for producing the IEP paperwork, right? And so it's not meant to track distance learning. And so that's the system that they go into to produce the triannuals, the IEPs, the addendums, all that. That produces that paperwork that the parents then in turn sign. It doesn't track how well we are, it's not a daily tracker of the information or a weekly tracker of how much we're communicating with parents, what we're doing with parents. It's meant much more for the annual compliance requirements that we have.
Okay, so is this just a flaw in the system? Because how are we tracking it prior to distance learning?
Well, so how you're doing it prior is you're actually doing it through the teacher giving grades and giving feedback. Because really what we're tracking right now is we're tracking how we are, communicating with parents, which is a non-issue when we're live, right? When we're present, then I can do how much interaction I have with you versus by your absences, right? So the communication log is, now that I can't physically see you and talk to you, I need to be able to track how much I'm engaging with you, right? And then the second piece is the teachers are doing lesson plans normally. So we're able to actually see, and frankly, we should have been doing this all along. That's why most teachers, it wasn't a problem. Most special education teachers, it wasn't a problem because they already had a system in place to actually show how they were working on each student's goals. And we have said, for the 3 that haven't done it, we have said that if you had a system before distance learning started, use that system. But if you didn't have a system, then you should have, and you're going to now need to use this. And so they need to be tracking. I mean, one reason why we have some of the level 4 issues that we have is we haven't always done our paperwork the way that we were supposed to, and we've been non-compliant. That's why we have had restrictions placed upon us, right?
Okay, so I think what we need to do is put this definitely on our SELPA follow-up that we're going to do hopefully sometime next year, because tracking should already be in place, and it should be part of teachers' daily routines in a system that is used district-wide, so it's easy to access for the SELPA department, for teachers, for admins to access. So something needs to be looked at to really streamline this process. And it looks like we've got another problem for our SELPA team to solve. So that is my questions about SELPA. I do know that there's additional online resources right now for SELPA. If something to look into, I didn't get a chance to look into it today. I just found out about it. It's called educatingalllearning.org. They're supposed to have some additional resources for districts to use for their SELPA teachers during the distance learning. So it's definitely something we might want to check into. Nellie's talked about in her video about ECE teachers not being on screen because they don't want to be on screen. Have we had issues with ECE teachers? Because I haven't, this is something new to me, so I want to hear about this.
So that was a non-issue. So there was a misunderstanding during the very first week of distance learning. Well, they're not doing distance learning, but the very first week of closure, there was a misunderstanding. We don't care if they're on screen.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify that up. The other thing right now, some teachers have sent me things about they have to have lesson plans in by Fridays to their admins. Now, I'm just saying, if teachers already have their lesson plans in Google Classrooms, admins have access to the Google Classes, why are we making extra work and also having to have teachers email, fax, turn in their plans as well as putting them on Google Classroom?
Okay, so I was really explicit in my presentation. That's not accurate.
Okay,
So
well, I'm just saying I've seen some emails from admins, so I'm bringing it to your attention because this is going to require some follow-up from you.
Well, the principals just received this morning at 9 a.m. They received the distance learning. There was one school site. I know what school site you're probably thinking of. There was one school site that was not following the directions provided. We have already followed up with that school site, and it is in the learning expectations. So any teacher can say, here it is. And we have engaged with that school site now twice, just today alone. And it was very explicit before. If you have Google Classroom, just give access. You don't have to do anything else.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for stating that clearly again. One thing, and we talked about this, Dr. Rodriguez, too, and one thing I've seen, and this isn't just from my conversation with you the other week, I've seen various posts on Facebook about this. Teachers going into classrooms and bagging students' items for distribution at home. I don't think that this should be done right now. I think this is something that can be saved for the end of the year. I understand, that admins and office staff have already taken care of medicines in most cases and gotten those back to parents, but student items in classroom, I don't think this is something that we need to be worrying about right now. We don't need extended teacher time in classrooms. We don't need more parents coming to sites, especially while the shelter in place is in effect. So I think that we need to look at making it clear that access to the sites is definitely just the Mondays and Fridays for limited times. Classrooms are to remain left alone if they can, and maybe even look at doing, as far as access to classrooms, limiting access after the next 2 weeks until the end of the year. We just spent a lot of money getting classrooms cleaned. We don't need multiple people going in and out of classrooms. We don't need to put extra stress on our essential workers for cleaning. So this is something that we need to think about, I think, and maybe make our rules a little bit more stricter about what can be done and what can't be done. I know it's a learning process, but I just have a lot of concerns that there's too much staff at sites for too many times. I don't think we need staff sitting at a site from 8:30 to 5:30.
So
Every
just
day.
so that, yeah, that's not happening though. They're there from 8, so they're not there for the entire time, but I want you to know that that's just 2 days a week. So they're not there on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays in that
Right,
case.
but we have limited hours on Monday and Friday for them, right?
So there is a rotation in place for them.
Right.
But we need those staff to be there in order to be able to do the kinder registration, to be able to do registering of students, the creation of the packets, the uploading of the packets. They're not working on, they're working from home, but it's actually fairly limited on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So, and they are also on those Mondays and Fridays, they're rotating in. So not meaning that staff is not there until 5:30 on Friday. And so.
Okay, but as far as the rest of the week goes, are we having staff on our sites full time for the whole entire week?
They are not there on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at all.
Okay, so they're only there on Mondays and Fridays, and that includes administration, as far as principals, coordinators, office managers.
Yes. Now, admin, maybe they're a little bit more if they feel that they need to be, but they're not required. We are requiring administration to be on campus anytime that we're asking an essential worker to be there. One of their own essential workers. So let me qualify. So not M&O or anything like that. For the most part, they are not there on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, which is why M&O is there on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, so that they don't actually cross paths and have interaction with each other.
Okay, but you would have the principal on site when M&O is there?
No,
you're not requiring that.
Only when their own personal essential staff is there. So that would be if they ask, which we haven't had at this point, but if we ask their health assistant to come in, or if we ask their office manager to be there, then an administrator must be present.
Okay.
To be able to take care of issues.
Okay, I wanted to clarify that because I was getting mixed comments from different people on that. So thank you for clarifying that. One point we did, so you'd mentioned that we are trying to reduce the risk for staff that's working alone. Jennifer Holm asked us also about if we have staff that's going out there working on a roof, what plans do we have in place to make sure that they are safe for the day? Is there another person that is on site but ground level away from them watching to make sure there's not accidents happen, they haven't fallen? What kind of procedure do we have in place for this?
So they're following the same protocol that they would prior. So if they would prior have gotten on a roof independently, they're doing that. If they don't, so for instance, on the picture you saw Herman that was on a high ladder painting, just having done a day in the life with him prior, he would have done that by himself prior. He would not have had someone with him.
My concern is, what are we doing to check up on these workers that are out there during a site? God forbid he falls off the ladder and there's nobody there. How are we ensuring the safety of our employees that are going up on ladders, going up on roofs? What kind of process of checks and balances do we have in place to make sure that they're okay? Are we waiting till they're supposed to clock out? And then,
so you do have the site. So you heard from one of the site custodians. So you do have the lead custodian and the nighttime custodian that are on site as well. So you're going to have, you have some staff there, so you don't have administration. You also have our supervisors that are rotating through. Of course, we have multiple sites and they're not at every site. But you do have between grounds, site custodians, and then the M&O staff, you could have, you almost always will have more than one person on a site. It's just they're on distinct projects that do not require them to interact with each other. What's not there is teachers. And that's why we went for the 3-10, so that we limited interaction.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Acosta, could you go ahead and finish up with your questions or comments?
Or just get started?
Yeah, oh, no, sorry.
Thank you, President Trustee Dodge Jr. So, you know, I want to just take one brief moment and start. I want to thank, with regards to something that Superintendent Dr. Michelle Rodriguez said, and when she was going over the curriculum and with the credit recovery that our adult ed, Dr. Nancy Bilicich's department is doing with our high school students. I just really want to sort of give a shout out to her and her team there and thank them for that and the work that they are in, you know, in reality, probably most likely going to have going forward from this. So I really want to thank her and her department for their work and their work with the superintendent, Dr. Michelle Rodriguez, and our students to ensure that. With regards to the reimbursement issue that was brought up by Trustee Orozco, Trustee Shocker, and you even chimed in on President Trustee Dodge Jr., I want to echo that, my concerns for that. I can tell you personally, as an educator that has been put into this emergency remote teaching situation, my personal expenses have gone up with my teaching. There is a need for me to print things out. I mean, you know, I'm limited to how much time I can literally spend on a screen looking at a PDF file. I mean, there are times I have just got to print things out and get offline and look at things in a different format. So for whatever reasons our teachers are doing that, I think we need to be respectful of that and adhere to that. It is not reasonable to expect that on top of everything else that they're doing online, that they have to be spending their time all online reading PDFs and if they just need to print something out and do it from that format. So I think that's something we really need to look at going forward. I think Trustee Shocker made a good point. I mean, we obviously have a reduction in sort of on-site costs with things like this. So maybe we could look at a shift there to give some recovery and not recovery to our teachers and educational supporters, you know, 6 months from now. I mean, I get we're government, but let's try to not move as slow as molasses as government usually does in these situations, would be my recommendation. The other thing that has also been brought up is the internet as an issue. I did hear Superintendent Dr. Michelle Rodriguez discuss about, I do hear that our teachers, right, don't make enough to live in Santa Cruz County, but make just enough not to qualify for free internet. I'm fortunate that in our home, we do have a high-speed internet. I also have my own personal hotspot. And I could tell you that in the last few weeks, I have been bumped out of my very own classrooms with my students multiple times. And I've had to transition between my home Wi-Fi, my hotspots, just to try to get back into my own classrooms. So the internet is an issue. And I think that's something that we need to look at. You know, if I had not had that, my own personal hotspot, as well as my Wi-Fi to try to transition back and forth in, I would have not got back into my own classrooms. So I think that is an important issue that we need to look at going forward, that that the slow speed internet issues are an issue. Like I said, I have good Wi-Fi speed in my home, but it's even slow now. And, you know, that's just kind of the nature of the way that is right now. So I do have a few questions. Superintendent Dr. Michelle Rodriguez, could you answer for me how many staff employees, not administrative employees, do we have at the DO on a daily basis?
So usually that answer would be around 150. We are now doing rotations where we're doing only half the staff at a time. So I would say it is probably around 75 max, but I could get you the exact number. It might be less than that, but I would say probably around, it's definitely half. So I would say probably around 75 if you did every floor.
Okay, and so can you give me a perspective of what that looks like department by department? So if you're
Sure.
saying there's only 75 staff employees, and we're just talking about staff right now, not admin.
So for
that are there
example,
daily.
sure. So for example, HR has 10 staff members, and so they are rotating. They're only on 2 days a week. And so they would have at any given time approximately 5 there. And then you have, for example, payroll. Payroll, I believe, has 7. It may be 6, 8. I believe it's 7, and so they would have in about 3 there a day. And so that's the process that we're doing. Is everybody has half of that, half of what they would do. And I don't have the number in each one. I will say I was just in HR yesterday, and I walked through almost every cubicle was empty. And so we are, we're doing reduced staff heavily. And when they are home, they have, we provided them Chromebooks. So they are able to do limited work from home. But it's, so they must be accessible during work hours when they are home. But they're doing generally 2 days a week. So they're doing two-day rotations.
2-day rotations pretty much for everyone that works at the DO?
Yep, except for administrators. Administrators are expected to be here daily.
And how many admins are there on a daily basis?
I wouldn't even know. Most of us are on the 4th floor. So that would be, well, it would be expanded cabinet and cabinet, which is around 30.
Okay, and what are you doing down there to implement social distancing amongst these employees?
So almost everybody, even if we are here, we're not doing in-person meetings. If we are, we're doing it similar to here. Most of the time we're doing virtual meetings with outside organizations, and then we're meeting. For me, it's about presence. It goes back to the exact same reason why I am asking principals to be on site when we're asking essential staff to be there. I believe if we're asking essential staff to be at work, we must be at work as well. And so since we are doing a rotation, we always have essential staff here. And so I think it's important that they see me here every day. And I feel the same with our district level administrators. I feel it's important that staff sees us. And so mostly it's not about meeting with each other as much as it is about people knowing that we too are willing and will come to work.
No, I completely appreciate and respect that. So you talked a bit about what you're doing to try to ensure social distancing at the DO. What about PPEs? What are you doing down there for that for employees down there?
So
at all levels, admin and staff.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, all employees, admin and staff.
Yeah. So we worked with a company called Dollar for Life, and we received 150 washable face masks that have the filter in them. We did hand those out. We do have another 100 that are coming this Thursday or Friday. So either tomorrow or the next. And then we have another group that is called PPE 4, I think it is, PPE4SC. .org, which is a group that is going to be giving us how many did we wind up asking for? 200 on Wednesday, and those are 4-layer masks that also have a filter. So people have been asking us for them. Most people have their own, so they haven't asked us for them. But if they need them, we gave the majority of that 150, a grand majority we gave to M&O. A portion we gave to technology. So we gave a portion to technology, and then I saved a small portion for when people come to my office and ask for them. By Wednesday of next week, we will have, because by then we'll have 500. We will have enough for anyone who is working, but most people have chosen to get their own individual. We also have a lot of staff who so for instance, one of our managers, his wife made about 20 of them and passed them out to people as well. So we knew that was going to be a need because we saw what was happening in Los Angeles. And so trying to be proactive, we're trying to stay ahead of the requirements. And so one of the requirements at Los Angeles is that the employer provides the face covering. And so that's why we've been engaging with the local organizations that we have.
Okay. I don't remember, I don't think I saw a slide number on it, but you had a slide about essential workers, the 65 plus.
Yeah.
And I don't know, if you want to bring it up, you can. You don't necessarily have to, but I have a question on that. Maybe it might be better if you bring it up.
Yeah, and the screen froze again, so G will try to get there. If you wouldn't mind, if you know what your question is, you can stop sharing and then try to get to it for me. And
so in that slide, you talked about the 65 plus, and if they were, if they themselves personally had a health condition, I believe, were identified as, right, here we go, the weakened immune system and at risk, right? That if they provide a doctor's note that they can opt out. Well, my question to you is, what sort of opt out are we giving to employees that maybe they're not necessarily 65 plus themselves or a weakened immune system, but maybe they have a child at home that is of one of those conditions, or an elderly parent or someone in their home they're caring for. And as I've said this before, as we know in our community, it doesn't even have to, in this day and age here, be a family member, because we do know the reality that we have multiple families living in a single family dwelling. So, you know, if that were the situation and one of our employees has either a child at home that has one of these at-risk conditions, or an elderly parent, or they just live in this communal environment in a single family dwelling with other multiple families, and someone in that family has a child or an elderly person with that condition, what sort of opt-out are we giving to those employees that you've deemed, essential workers at this point?
So we do have, we have multiple of those employees that currently are not working. We have one that we were able to find work within the home that person could do. But we have several that have received doctor's notes and they currently aren't working at all. They're being paid their full salary and they're not working at all, because what they do for us, they're not capable. I mean, we're not capable of doing that. So we have a listing in HR of all the employees and the reasons for them not working at this time. And it's done by, reason area. So being over 65 is one reason. Having serious long-term health conditions is another, being pregnant is another, and all those don't receive needs doctor notices. The one that does is the one about caring for an individual. So we have everything from a wife issue I know of. We have child issues, and we do have elderly parents as well. And so we have staff currently that's not coming into work because of that.
But it doesn't even have to be caring for the individual, because as I said, we know that we have multiple families living in single housing family dwellings. So if that were the case, they could be potentially living with someone who has a condition who's not per se a family member, and you're asking for them to provide documentation for that instance?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, they either need to, they have to provide documentation. We will most likely, Santa Cruz is doing so well that we will not be peaking now. It's not estimated that we're going to peak until mid-May. And then we will probably be on the closed order after that for 6 weeks, and things may change but as of Saturday, that's what we were being told by Gail Newell, that not to expect shelter in place to be lifted before July 1st. So if we're allowing staff to be home, not work, and receive full pay, yes, they need to get a doctor's note if they are just with someone that is there. And I feel like we haven't had any issues where people have said, oh, I can't get that doctor's note, but this is my issue. I don't know of anyone at this point, but I would assume that individual, that's why we said individual and not family member, that individual would want them to get a doctor's note, or they would have to do what I do, which is I am not able to visit my mother because she has a heart condition, and she knows, well, I think it might change now, but that they would not give her a ventilator, and she would likely not make it. So I don't see my mother because of that. So they either need to not visit that person, not be around that person, or in your case, they live with that person, so they don't have a choice. Then they need to get a doctor's note, because we cannot have people staying home until July 1st and not be able to substantiate that they in fact cannot work for us.
And I think I'm understanding that, but I just don't see the language of that here in your slides. So where is the language of that?
I'm not sure what you mean. What language?
Well, because here it says, if I'm looking at this, it says staff caring for an individual. Well, let's just say if I lived in a home with maybe 2 other families, my family, and then there's 2 other families in that home. Maybe I don't per se care for this other family's grandmother who's, over 80, but that person is still in the same dwelling where I reside. So if I'm having to go to work as what you've deemed an essential employee, then I'm making at risk to other people in that household when I come home from work every single day. So that person, I may not be necessarily caring for them, but I am residing in the same dwelling as them. Do you see what I'm saying about the at-risk component there? I don't see that language. Your language here in your slide says specifically a staff caring for an individual. Doesn't mean I would be caring for that individual, but maybe I reside in the same dwelling with that individual. So where is the language that clarifies that for employees, that gives them the out if they live in a situation? And I'm not saying that, I'm not just validating that you're saying you still have to get a note, maybe from a doctor, but where is the language to be beyond caring for an individual? Do you
do not have it right now? It is slated as caring for an individual.
So I think we need to open and expand that language, because this is the reality of the situation of where we are and where we live. And I've said this previous in other board meetings, we know that we have multiple families living in single family housing dwellings or even apartment complexes. So there is a higher at risk that there's no regard being taken for. And that is very concerning for me. I think that we need to expand the language on this, that if it includes those types of circumstances.
Just to clarify, because I'm hearing the concern there, is this something that could be considered on a case-by-case basis with communication?
Yes, I mean, we haven't had anyone concerned about that, so I would just encourage them to go to HR and have a conversation about it.
Well, I think this needs, you know, I'm sorry, I have to disagree with you, Vice Chair, Trustee Holm. This isn't like a case by case. I understand we can look at it as a case by case, but I think that the language needs to be clear because we are dealing with at least 2 collective bargaining units within the district. So with that given, we need to make sure that the language is clear and explicit, that it's encompassing that. And if that employee provides documentation to that effect to HR, I think that qualifies. But I'm just saying that I think the language right here is very lacking. So if we can expand the language to include that, because we do know, particularly down here in South County and across our border into Monterey County, we have multiple families living in the same dwelling. And so caring for, right? I could live in a house with other families and not necessarily be caring for an elderly person. So I'm just saying, I think that language needs to be changed and expanded on that. So moving on from that, to your slide, you spoke about the M&O workers, that they're working single. They're only being required to have 1 person. I did hear Trustee Shocker ask some concerns about employees going up on ladders. I heard your response to that, and I'm really not satisfied with that response. I understand pretty firsthand knowledge how M&O department works, and I know that when those employees leave the site in the morning and go out, their supervisors know what sites they're going to. But again, anything can happen in any given moment of time with an employee. And if an employee were to fall off of a roof, to fall off of a ladder, and that's a daytime crew person, I think your explanation was, well, then the nighttime crew would come by.
No, there's a daytime crew there as well.
Okay, but granted, there is not the number and level of people on a school site right now that normally is. An employee can go missed and unnoticed for hours. And if that employee was incapacitated, I mean, that is definitely putting the health and safety and well-being of our employees at great risk. And I am really not comfortable with that. I do believe we need to get some sort of SOP in place immediately about addressing that. I am not comfortable with this, kind of carte blanche attitude that will somehow catch them.
If that was your last question, Trustee Acosta?
No, I'm actually waiting for a response to that.
Okay.
Because this is a very serious matter. I mean, I've reached out to several other school districts throughout the state of California, San Jose, San Francisco, schools in Southern California, and their M&O employees, since we went on these shelter-in-place orders and the school closures in the middle of March, they haven't even returned to work.
So every single school district in Santa Cruz County has their M&O workers working, and they never missed a day. Our M&O workers and the majority of our classified staff were off 3 complete weeks. If you ask any school district in Santa Cruz County, they are working. Their M&O workers have worked every week since the closure. So I don't know.
But not all school districts and public K-12 school districts in the state of California are doing that.
I didn't say that. What I said was in Santa Cruz County, every single school district is doing it. So we are not the only school district, and our school district waited 3 weeks to bring back anyone. I can have a conversation with M&O leadership and all that about what safety precautions we can put in place, and we will take it under advisement and look at developing something for anything that requires anyone to get on any height of any place, or just safety in general. So we can definitely have that conversation. We have post board after each board meeting, and so that will be a topic that we will discuss and determine how to ensure their safety while they work.
Well, as I said, not all school districts in the state of California are doing this. Many are not doing that. Their M&O employees are at home where they are sheltering in place and being safe and sound. And I mean, based on the presentation and some of the parts that you put before, it almost sounds to me like, you know, just viewing that and listening to it when you were talking about all these things we're doing at all these school sites, and how we're getting caught up on all these things and doing all these great things. It almost sounds like this global pandemic is being taken advantage of to improve our school sites. And I really question at what point, you know, did that become more important than human life, the health and safety and well-being of our employees and subsequently their families. That is very, very, very concerning to me, because at this point, it seems to be like just a complete disregard for the health and safety and well-being of our employees. And that's very concerning to me. So I'm sorry, I was actually speaking to Dr. Michelle Rodriguez, but so with that, I mean, I think you understand my position and where I'm coming from. There's only one last thing I would actually want to ask you, Superintendent Dr. Michelle Rodriguez. That video that you showed us with the essential employees, why were there no female classified employees in that video?
I don't know. I think it was mostly because we were focusing on M&O and transportation, and we have very limited female people, staff that work for us in those departments. We were focusing on essential workers who are required to show up, and we asked for volunteers, and those were people who volunteered. And so those were the 4 that came up and said that they wanted to do so. And I think the important piece that I think that we wanted to highlight from that is that people take pride in their work. People understand the necessity of what they're doing, and they understand that our school sites need to be protected so that when students come back, they can actually have a school site that it does not require us to do mold abatement and doesn't require us to do the work. And I will just say, I do not believe that we are putting people in danger. To have someone leave their home, go to a truck that only they go in, that has been sanitized before they go in, go to a school site which has very limited staff, do the work that they are trained to do, and then get back into that car by themselves and then go back to their home. I do not feel that we are putting people at risk. And I feel that they have very limited risk, and we have extreme need. I mentioned this before, but I'll re-put it out there. We have and continue to have OSHA complaints. That means that our school sites are technically not safe for students, and they are not safe for staff. We cannot leave facilities that are already in that condition for vacant for months. We will not come back to the same site that we left. And so I understand your point, but I also feel that we are not putting people in significant danger. I feel that we have made sure that we have limited their days. We have done everything that we can to ensure their safety, and people, many of the essential workers that we have, they know how much we need them, and they want to ensure that students have schools that they can actually come back to. We currently, right before we left, we had libraries, multi-purpose rooms, offices that were shut down for mold because of leaks that were not repaired. If we continue to have the rainy season we have and not repair our leaks, which we need our carpenters for, we need our painters, we need all that to clean that up, then we will come back to facilities that we cannot have students in. And frankly, we wouldn't want to have staff in either. And I mentioned the dollar amount before, but that highlights when you are spending $500,000 on classified alone, overtime, extra time, supplemental, and subs, that means that you have a lot of work. And it's not work just to make it look pretty. It's work to make it safe and accessible for students and staff.
So on that, I'm just going to chime back to that, at someone who has an extensive background in responsible business practices, at no point in time does money ever become more important than human life. I fully disagree with you. We also don't have an SOP in place to ensure the safety and well-being of our employees when they're on sites. So that is very concerning to me. I've expressed that concern. Whether you're going to do anything about that or not is going to be yet to be seen. And then just on the last point, I believe you have a lot of essential employees working at the district office that are female. So with my point on that, let's not disregard our female classified school employee workers. I say that to you as a former classified school employee worker for PVUSD and as a woman who practices responsible business practices. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Trustee Acosta. Next action item 5.1, resolution 19-20-39, designate projects as essential government function. And this report will be presented by Joe Dominguez, the Chief Business Officer.
Well, good evening, Board President Dodge Jr. and members of the board. So this item is specific a resolution that dictates that we have as a district essential government functions, specifically to our capital and construction projects. And in the
Sorry, Jim. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. Sorry, Joe. Go ahead and continue. We're gonna, oh, did we lose it? I was trying, just so people know, I was trying to put up board docs is what we were trying to do. Joe, can you get back on? Okay. Okay, so what I'll do is I will, while we're waiting for him, I'm gonna go ahead and get on board docs so that we can start looking at it. Is he back on? Is he trying to get back in? Look at the screen. That's weird. Okay, here he goes. He's back. Okay. All right. We know you're trying, Joe, or we know you're there. I have up the document for you.
All right, so in the attached, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right, so in the attached resolution, it specific gives, the board gives, captures both Watsonville High School cafeteria and kitchen and project and Pajaro Valley High School football and sports field project as an essential business project. And in doing so, this allows us to continue the construction work that needs to be done so that we can maintain our timeline and make sure that these projects get completed accordingly. So what this resolution allows, if the board approves it, it allows myself and the superintendent to continue informing the contractors to continue work on a day-to-day basis and to direct the work that needs to get done to make sure that these projects are completed in a timely manner.
Is that it?
Yes.
Any public speakers to this item? Any discussion from the board?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this resolution, but with the following amendment in section 5. So I'd like section 5 to read, the district's superintendent or designee within the board bylaws is authorized to take steps to perform actions necessary to carry out, give effect to, and comply with the terms of this resolution.
So you wanted to take that one out?
No, I want to add. So I want it to say the district's superintendent or designee within the board bylaws is authorized to take steps to perform actions necessary to carry out, give effect to, and comply with the terms of this resolution. So it's adding in some words and removing the word intent.
I'll second that motion.
Are there specific bylaws that we're referring to?
So the board as a governing body should be overseeing decisions certain decisions, financial decisions, contractors, that sort of thing. So I still want to follow the board bylaws with this resolution, but at the same time, give Joe, who's probably going to be doing this, the steps he needs to take actions to carry out and make sure that we can get work done at the athletic field and kitchen.
We can do that, right?
So are there any reservations? I have not. So my only concern on that is I'm not sure I have not reviewed the bylaws to know whether or not there are any time constraints or anything that would prohibit us from doing a bylaw. So that's my only concern, is that we intentionally made it just to these two projects. So we could have made it much more expansive to any project. We hit just these two projects specifically so that we could continue moving it forward. So my challenge with it is I just don't know what sections of bylaws, and I wouldn't know if there are bylaws that are actually going counter to this, because what this is doing is this is allowing us to make some resolution to allow them to continue to operate and working with them on their programs. So Joe, do you know if there are any bylaws, or do you not really know?
I'm not specific on bylaws. I do know that when we did, the resolution is required because we lacked bylaws that gave for myself the authority to continue the work under the governor and the county health issuance. So having a lack of bylaws, we need this resolutions to support this as an essential service.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we have a first and a second, so I'll just go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Could we do a roll call vote?
Okay, do we want to have any more discussion?
Well, I mean, it just sounds, well, to me, it sounds like there's no bylaws and
I can, you know what I can do to help here? Let's make it say the district superintendent or designee is authorized to take, cross off all steps and perform, cross out all actions necessary to carry out, give effect to, and then comply with the terms of this resolution pertaining to the athletic field upgrades and site improvement projects at PVHS and kitchen modernization at WHS. Does that solve the problem, Michelle?
Yes.
It'll be fine.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and second that change to your motion, Trustee Shocker, as I'd already seconded.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can you call for a roll call vote as Trustee Shocker already requested? President Trustee Dodge?
We're going right now. She's getting the cards.
Thank you.
I don't know. I don't think Karen's there, but I think that Kim's back. I think.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Trustee Osmondson, are you there? Your vote? Trustee Shocker?
Yes.
Trustee Holm?
Yes.
Trustee Orozco?
Yes.
Trustee DeSerpa?
Aye.
Trustee Acosta?
Yes.
President Dodge?
Yes. Okay. With that 6-0-1 vote, the motion passes. And with that, we will adjourn our meeting. Our next regular board meeting is scheduled for April 29th. It will be the same virtual format as this meeting. Hopefully everybody fills out that survey for graduation, so we could all get that going. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Trustee Dodge.
Thank you.